Venedikt Yerofeev, Moscow-Petushki. From the author. The first edition of Moscow-Petushki was sold out quickly thanks to its being an edition of one copy. I have often been chastised since then for the chapter Hammer and Sickle Karacharovo, quite without reason. In the introduction to the first edition, I warned all the girls that they ought to skip the chapter Hammer and Sickle Karacharova, since after the phrase, "and I drank it straight down," there followed nothing but pure obscenity, since in the entire chapter, save for the phrase, "and I drank it straight down," there was not a single printable word. With this conscious advice, I only assured that all reader, in particular the girls, would head right for the chapter Hammer and Sickle Karacharovo, without even reading the previous chapters, without even as so much reading the words, "and I drank it straight down." For this reason, I have considered it necessary, in this second edition, to toss out the chapter Hammer and Sickle Karacharovo, all of the indecent words. It'll be better that way because, for one thing, people will read me from the beginning through, and for another, no one will be offended. V.E. Moscow, on the way to the Kursk station. Everyone says, "Kremlin, Kremlin." I hear about it from everybody, but I've never seen it myself. How many times? Thousands. I've walked, drunk or hungover, across Moscow from north to south, east to west, from one end to the other, one way or another, and never did I see the Kremlin. Take yesterday. Again, I didn't see it, and I spent the whole evening wandering around those parts, and I wasn't even so drunk. As soon as I came out of the Savelovo station, I had a glass of Zubrovka to start with, since I know from experience that they've not come up with anything better by way of an eye-opener. So a glass of Zubrovka. Then later, on the Kulaevsky street, another, only not Zubrovka, but this time of coriander. One of my acquaintances says that coriander vodka has an anti-human effect on a person, that it strengthens all the physical members but weakens the soul. With me, it happened the other way around for some reason. That is, my soul was strengthened in the highest degree, while my members were weakened. But I agree that this too is anti-human. Therefore, at the same time, I added 2 mugs of Zhiguli beer and an Alpe de Dessert port straight from the bottle. Of course, you'll ask, then what, Venichka, then what did you drink? But I can't figure out what I drank next. I remember clearly, on Chekhov Street, I downed 2 glasses of Hunter's. But really, could I cut across the Sadovi Circle without a drink? No, I couldn't, which means that I drank something else. Then I headed for the center of town, since it always works out that way. When I'm looking for the Kremlin, I end up at the Kursk station. In fact, I really did have to go to the Kursk station, and not the center of town, but I set out for the center all the same in order to see the Kremlin at least once. Meanwhile thinking, I won't see the Kremlin anyway, and I'll end up right at the Kursk station. Now I'm almost in tears, feeling sorry for myself. Not because I didn't get to the Kursk station yesterday, of course. That's nonsense. If not yesterday, then today I'll get there. Naturally, not because I woke up this morning in some unfamiliar front hallway or another. It turns out that I sat down on a step in the hallway, the 40th from the bottom by count, grasped my suitcase to my heart, and fell asleep like that. No, I'm not feeling sorry because of that. No, I'm feeling sorry because I just calculated that from Chekhov Street to this hallway, I drank up 6 rubles. But where and what, and at what sequence, to good or evil purpose, this nobody knows, and now no one will ever know. Just as we don't know to this day whether Tsar Boris killed the Tsarevich Dmitri or the other way around. What sort of hallway was it? I haven't the slightest idea, even now, and it ought to be that way. Everything should. Everything should take place slowly and incorrectly, so that man doesn't get a chance to start feeling proud, so that man is sad and perplexed. I came outside when it was already getting light. Everybody knows, everyone who has ended up out cold in a hallway and left at dawn, everyone knows what a heavy heart I carried down those 40 steps in a strange hallway, and what a weight I carried outside. It's nothing, I said to myself, nothing. There's a pharmacy, see? And over there, that creep in the brown jacket scraping the sidewalk. You see that too. So calm down. Everything is going along as it should. If you want to turn left, Vanyishka, turn left. I'm not forcing you to do anything. If you want to turn right, turn right. I turned right, staggering a bit from the cold and from grief. Yes, from the cold and from grief. Oh, that morning burden in the heart. Oh, the illusory nature of calamity. Oh, the irrevertible. What's worse about this burden, which no one yet has called by any name? What's worse, paralysis or nausea? Nervous exhaustion or mortal sorrow somewhere in the region of the heart? But if that's all equal, then all the same, what's worse about it, superfaction or fever? It's okay, I said to myself. Back to the wind and get going slowly. And breathe slow. Breathe so that your knees don't get tangled. Go on, anywhere. It's all the same where. Even if you turn left, you'll end up at the Kursk station, or straight, all the same. The Kursk station. Therefore turn right so that you'll get there for sure. Oh, vanity. Oh, the ephemeral. Oh, that most helpless and shameful of times in the life of my people. The time from dawn until the liquor stores open up. How many unnecessary gray hairs has it caused us homeless and grieving brunettes? Let's go, Venichka. Let's go. Moscow, Kursk Station Square. There you are. I did know what I was talking about. You turn right and you inevitably get to the Kursk station. You were bored there in the back alleys, Venichka, and you wanted to rub elbows with the crowd, so there you are. Oh, forget it, I gave myself the brush off. Do I really need your crowd? Are your people really necessary? Take the Redeemer even, who to his own mother said, "What art thou to me?" And indeed, what do these people, vain and repellent creatures, have to do with me? I'd better lean up against a column and screw up my eyes, so I won't feel sick. Of course, Venichka, of course, someone sang out on the high, so softly, so tenderly. Screw up your eyes so that you won't feel sick. Oh, I recognize them. It's them again, the angels of God. It's you again. But of course it's us. Again, so tender. You know, angels, I asked also softly. What, the angels answered. It's tough for me. Yes, we know that it's tough, the angels sang out. But get moving, you'll feel better, and the stores will be open in half an hour. No vodka until 9, that's true, but they'll have a little red the first thing. Red wine? A little red wine, the angels of God chorused. Chilled? Chilled, of course. Oh, I got terribly excited. You say get moving, you'll feel better, but I don't feel like moving at all. You know yourselves what sort of shape I'm in to get moving. The angels kept quiet about that, and then started singing again. You know what? Drop by the restaurant at the station. They've got something there. Yesterday they had sherry. It couldn't have been all drunk up in one evening. Yes, I'll go. I'll go right now and find out. Thank you, angels. Your health, Venya. And then ever so gently, don't mention it. They're so nice. Well, let's get moving then. It's a good thing I bought some goodies yesterday. You can't go to Petushki without goodies. It was the angels who reminded me about the goodies because I bought them for the ones who are themselves like angels. It's a good thing you bought them. When yesterday did you buy them? Remember, walk and try to remember. I walked across the square. Rather, I was drawn across it. I stopped 2 or 3 times and froze on the spot in order to get the queasiness under control. Because after all, a person has more than just a physical side. He has a spiritual side as well, and more than that, there's a mystical, a super spiritual side. So there I was in the square, expecting any minute to get sick on all 3 sides, and again I'd stop and freeze. So when was it that you bought all your goodies yesterday? After the hunters? No, after the hunters I wasn't up to buying presents. Between the first and second glass of hunters? No, between the 2 glasses there was a break of 30 seconds, and I'm not Superman and able to get something done in 30 seconds. Anyway, a Superman being would have collapsed after the first glass of hunters and never made it to the second. So when was it? By the grace of God, how many mysteries there are in the world, an impenetrable veil of mysteries, before the coriander or between the beer and the Alpe de dessert? Moscow, the Kursk Station Restaurant. No, not between the beer and the Alpe de dessert for sure. There was no break then at all. So probably before the coriander, that's quite possible. Or more likely, I bought the nuts before the coriander, but the candy after. Or perhaps the other way around. When I drunk the coriander, There's nothing to drink, the bouncer said, and he looked me over as if I were a little dead bird or a filthy buttercup. No, nothing alcoholic. Though I cringed in desperation, all the same I managed to mumble that I hadn't come for that anyways. It's none of his damn business why I was there. Perhaps the Perm Express didn't want to go to Perm, and for some reason, and so I came to eat beef stroganoff and listen to Ivan Kozlovsky or something from the Barber of Seville. I'd taken my little suitcase with me anyway, and just as back there in the front hallway I squeezed it to my heart, expecting a command. Nothing to drink, Mother of God. Indeed, if you believe the angels, they're fairly drowning in sherry in here. But now there's only music, and music with some kind of mangy harmonics on that. Yes, that's Ivan Kozlovsky, all right. I recognized him immediately. There's no one else with a voice that nauseous. All singers have equally nauseous voices, but every one of them is nauseous in its own way. That's why I can identify them so easily. Well, of course, Ivan Kozlovsky. Oh, chalice of my forebearers. Oh, let me gaze forever upon you by starlight. Well, of course, Ivan Kozlovsky. Oh, why am I smitten so with you? Don't reject me. Will you be ordering anything? What have you got? Just music? What do you mean, just music? Beef stroganoff, pastries, udder. I felt sick again. What about sherry? No sherry. Interesting. You serve udder, but not sherry. Very interesting. Right, no sherry, but udder we've got. And I was left alone. So as not to get sicker, I've started to examine the chandelier above my head. It was a good chandelier, but really too heavy. If it should break away and fall on someone's head, it'd be terribly painful. Well, no, probably not even painful. While it's tearing away and falling, you're sitting, not suspecting a thing, drinking sherry, for instance, but as soon as it hits you, you're dead. A weighty thought that. You're sitting there, and a chandelier falls from above. A very weighty thought. But really, why so weighty? If, let's say, you've been drinking sherry, if you're good and drunk and haven't yet succeeded in getting hungover, and they don't give you any sherry, and then you've got a chandelier on the head, that's weighty. A very oppressive thought. Not everyone has the strength to endure, especially when dead drunk. And you'd agree to it if they bring you, let's say, 800 grams of sherry, in return for which they'd unhook the chandelier over your head, and... So have you made up your mind? Are you ordering something or not? 800 grams of sherry, please. You're already doing well enough, obviously. You were told in plain Russian we don't have any sherry. So, I'll wait until you've got it. Wait, you'll get your sherry, all right. And again, I'm left alone. As she left, I looked at that woman with repulsion, especially at her white stockings without any seams. A seam would have made me feel at peace, perhaps even unburdened my soul and my consciousness. Why are they all so crude, And so blatantly crude, at the very moment when one oughtn't to be crude, when a person has all his nerves dangling out, when he is chicken-hearted and placid. Why is it always like that? Oh, if only, in the whole world, if everyone were like I am. Now, placid and timorous and never sure about anything, not sure of himself nor of the seriousness of his position under the heavens. Oh, how good it would be. No enthusiast, no fear or valor, nothing obsessive, just universal chicken-heartedness. I'd agree to live on the earth for an eternity if they'd showed me first a corner where there's not always room for valor. Universal chicken-heartedness. Indeed, this is the panacea, this is the predicate to sublime perfection. And as for nature's activist inclinations, who's getting sherry here? Looming above me were two women and a man, all three in white. I looked up at them, and oh, how much ugliness and vagary there must have been in my eyes then. I knew that just by looking at them, because my ugliness and vagary were reflected in their eyes. I felt myself sinking somehow, and losing a hold on my soul. Yes, well, I'm almost not asking. Oh, so there isn't any sherry. I'll wait, I'll just... What do you mean, just? What do you think you're going to wait for? Oh, nothing much. I'm just going to Petushki, to a beloved young lady. Ha. I've brought some goodies, see? They waited, the executioners, to see what I would say next. I'm from Siberia, I'm just a kid, and just so I won't get sick, I'd like some sherry. Pointlessly, I mentioned sherry again. That set them off at once. All three of them grabbed me under the arms and led me, oh, the pain of such a disgrace, across the entire station and shoved me outside, and after me my little suitcase with the goodies. Outside again. Oh, emptiness, oh, the bared fangs of existence. Moscow to the train by way of a liquor store. What it was like from the restaurant to the store and from the store to the train, human language cannot bend itself to describe. I won't try either. And if the angels should take it up, they'll break into tears, and the tears will prevent them from getting anywhere. Instead, let's do this. Let's honor those 2 deadly hours with a minute of silence. Remember those 2 hours, Venedikt, In the most ecstatic, most sparkling days of your life, remember them. In moments of bliss and rapture, do not forget them. They should not be repeated. I turn to all who are kindred, to all people of goodwill. I turn to all whose hearts are open to poetry and fellow feelings. Leave what you're doing. Stop together with me and honor with a minute of silence that which is inexpressible. If you've got any kind of old noisemaker, whistle, or horny hand, let's hear it. So, I also stop. Exactly 1 minute standing like a column in the middle of Kursk Station Square. I stare darkly at the station clock. My hair one moment flying in the wind, now standing on one end, now flying again with taxis flowing around me on all four sides. People too, and they look at me wildly, undoubtedly thinking, should he be sculpted like that for the edification of the people of the future, or not? And the silence is broken only by a husky female voice pouring down from nowhere. Attention, leaving from siding number 4 at 8:16, the train for Petushki. Stops in Hammer and Sickle, Chukhlinka, Ryutova, Железнодорожная, and beyond, at all stations except Yesina. But I remain standing. I repeat, leaving from siding number 4 at 8:16, the train for Petushki. Stops in Hammer and Sickle, Chukhlinka, Ryutova, Железнодорожная, and beyond, at all stops except Yesina. Well, that's it. The minute has passed. Now, of course, everyone pounces on me with questions. Hey, you got some booze, Vanichka? Yes, I tell you I've got some, and I continue walking in the direction of the platform, inclining my head to the left. Your suitcase is heavy now, right? And there's a song in your heart, right? The suitcase is heavy, that's right, but as far as my heart goes, it's too early to tell. All the same, Vanichka, so what did you buy? We're terribly interested. Yes, I can tell. Just a minute. I'll list it all. First, 2 bottles of Kubanskaya for $2.62 each, total $5.24. Next, 2 quarter bottles of Rossiyskaya at $1.64, total $5.24 plus $3.28, 8 rubles and 52 kopecks. And then some red. Just a moment, I remember. Yes, a stout rosé for $1.37. So, you say, and the grand total? This is really terribly interesting. The grand total is 9 rubles 89 kopecks, I say, stepping onto the platform. But that's not really the grand total. I also bought a couple of sandwiches so as to not puke. You mean so as to not throw up, Vanichka? No, what I said, I said. I can't take the first dose without a bit to eat, because I might puke otherwise. But the second and third now I can drink straight, because it's okay to feel sick, but I won't start puking no matter what. Right up to number 9. And then I need another sandwich. How come, you'll throw up again? Oh no, I won't throw up for anything, but as for puking, I'll puke. Of course, you all nod your heads at that. I even see from here, from the wet platform, how all of you, scattered across my world, are nodding your heads and getting ready to be ironic. How complicated is that, Vanichka? How subtle. You said it. Such clarity of thought, and that's all it takes to make you happy? Nothing more? What do you mean, nothing more? I say, getting on the train. If I'd had more money, I would have taken along some beer and a couple of bottles of port, but here you really begin to moan. Oh, Vanichka, oh, you primitive. So what of it? So I am a primitive, I say. But I'm not going to answer any more of your questions. I'll just sit here hugging my suitcase to my heart and looking out the window. Like this. A primitive. Fine. Well, you go on pestering me. What's with you? Offended? Of course not, I answer. Don't get offended. We wish you well. Only why are you being such a fool, hugging your suitcase to your heart? Because the vodka's in there, is it? Now I'm thoroughly offended. What's the vodka got to do with anything? Attention passengers. This train goes to Petushki. Stops in Hammer and Sickle, Chukhlinka, Ryutova, Железнодорожная, and beyond at all stations except Yesina. After all, what's the vodka got to do with it? Aren't you sick of talking about the vodka? In the restaurant, I was hugging it to my heart and there was no vodka in there. And in the hallway, if you remember, I also hugged it close, though there wasn't even a whiff of vodka in it yet. If you want to know everything, I'll tell you. But wait, I'll tie something on by Hammer and Sickle and Moscow. Hammer and Sickle. Then I'll tell everything. Be patient. Aren't I being patient? Well, of course, they all consider me a bad person. In the morning and hungover I've been, I'm of the very same opinion about myself. But after all, it's impossible to trust the opinion of a person who hasn't yet been able to tie on one. On the other hand, what chasms open up in me in the evening? If I've gotten good and looped during the day, what chasms? But so what? So what if I'm a bad person? I've noticed that in general, if a person feels nasty in the morning, but is full of plans and dreams and vigor in the evening, he's a very bad person. Mornings, rotten, evenings, fine, a sure sign of a bad type. But take someone who's full of energy and hope in the morning, but overwhelmed with exhaustion in the evening. For sure, he's trashy, narrow-minded mediocrity. That sort of person is disgusting to me. I don't know how he strikes you, but to me, he's disgusting. Of course, there are those for whom morning and evening are equally pleasing, who are equally pleased by sunrise and sunset. These are simply bastards. It's sickening even to talk about them. But then if someone is equally repulsed by morning and evening, I really don't know what to say about him. That's the ultimate cocksucking scum. Because our stores stay open till 9, and you can always get something at the Big Yerofeev grocery up till 11. So if you're not scum, by evening you'll always be able to create some sort of little chasm. And so what do I have here? I took everything I had out of the suitcase and fingered it from the sandwich to the stout rosé at a ruble 37. Touched it and suddenly started to grieve and grew dim. Lord, you see what I possess, but truly, is this necessary to me? Truly, is this what my soul pained over? This is what people have given me in exchange for that over which my soul is pained? But if they had given me that, would I really be in need of this? Look, Lord, here's the stout rosé at a ruble 37. And all in blue flashes of lightning the Lord answered me. So what did Saint Teresa need her stigmata for? It too was unnecessary, yet she desired it. That's the point, I answered in ecstasy. Me too, I desire this, but it is not at all necessary. Well, since it's desired, Vinchka, go on and drink. I said this to myself, but took my time, to see if perhaps the Lord has anything else to say. The Lord was silent. Okay, then, I grabbed one of the quarter bottles and went out to the vestibule. Well, my spirit has grieved in confinement for 4.5 hours. Now I'll let it out to roam. I have a glass and a sandwich so as to not throw up, and I have a soul till now barely open to the impressions of being. Share with me my feast, Lord. Hammer and sickle, Karacharovo. And I drank it straight down. Karacharova Chuklinka. I drank it, and you saw how long I went on making a face, and holding back the nausea, how I swore and cursed. 5 minutes, 7 minutes, a whole eternity. I flung myself about like that, surrounded by 4 walls, grabbing myself by the throat, entreating God not to offend me. Right up to Karacharovo, from hammer and sickle to Karacharovo, God was unable to hear my prayer. The glass I had drunk first seethed somewhere between the maw and the gullet, then billowed up and then subsided again. It was like Vesuvius, Herculanum, and Pompeii, like the 1st of May salute in my country's capital, and I suffered and prayed. And it was only at Karacharova that God heard my prayer and heeded it. Everything settled down and got quiet. And with me, once everything gets quiet and settled down, it's irrevocable. Rest assured, I respect nature. It wouldn't be nice to return nature's gifts to her. I smoothed my hair down a bit and returned to the car. The other passengers looked at me almost indifferently, with their round, vacant eyes. I like that. I like that my country's people have such empty, bulging eyes. This instills in me a feeling of legitimate pride. You can imagine what the eyes are like where everything is bought and sold, deeply hidden, secretive, predatory, and frightened. Devaluation, unemployment, pauperism. People look at you distrustfully with restless anxiety and torment. That's the kind of eyes they have in the world of ready cash. On the other hand, my people have such eyes. They're constantly bulging, but with no tension of any kind in them. There's complete lack of any sense, but then what power, what spiritual power. These eyes will not sell out. They not sell out or buy anything, whatever happens to my country. In days of doubt, in days of burdensome reflection, at the time of any trial or calamity, these eyes will not blink. They don't give a good goddamn about anything. I like my people. I'm happy that I was born and grew up under the gaze of those eyes. There's only one bad about it, though. What if they noticed what I was up to in the vestibule, turning somersaults from one corner to the other, like the great Fyodor Shalapin in such tragedy, with my hand on my throat, as if something was choking me to death. And why not? Let them. If anyone saw, all right. Perhaps I was rehearsing something out there, right? Come to think of it, perhaps it was the immortal drama of Othello the Venetian Moor. I was playing it alone, all the roles at once. I deceived myself, betrayed my convictions. Or else I had started to suspect myself of deceiving myself and betraying my convictions. I whispered in my ear about myself, oh, what I whispered. And there I am in love with myself for my suffering, and I started to strangle myself. Grabbed myself by the throat to strangle myself. What's it to them, what I was doing out there? Look at that pair over there, on the right next to the window. One of them is so stupid in his quilted jacket, but the other one is so intelligent in his worsted overcoat. And if you please, they're not embarrassed by anyone, pouring themselves drinks and putting it away. They don't run out to the ends of the car, wringing their hands. The stupid one grunts and says, "Son of a bitch, not bad." But the other, intelligent one drinks and says, "Transcendental," and in such a festive voice. The stupid one takes a bite to eat and says, "Tastes fantastic today, out of this world." The so intelligent one chews and says, "Yes, transcendental." Incredible. I returned to the car wondering, had I been taken for a Moor, or did they think ill of me? While these two drink hearty in the open, like the crown of existence, feeling superior to the whole world, I am hungover in the morning and hide from heaven and earth, because this is the most intimate of intimacies. Before work, I drink on the sly. At work, I drink on the sly. But these two, transcendental. My delicate nature is indeed detrimental to me. It corrupted my childhood and adolescence. More precisely, it was not delicacy, but simply that I had infinitely expanded the sphere of intimacy. How many times has this destroyed me? I'll give you an example. I remember 10 years ago I moved to Orekhovo. At that time, there were 4 other people living in the same room. I was the 5th. We lived in complete harmony, and there weren't any quarrels among us. If someone wanted to drink port, he'd get up and say, "Boys, I want to drink port." And everyone would say, "Good, drink port, we'll drink port with you." If someone was inclined to drink beer, everyone was inclined to drink beer. Wonderful. But suddenly I started to notice that the 4 of them were somehow pushing me away. They would whisper amongst themselves, looking at me as I left the room. This was a bit alarming for me. And I read the same preoccupation, fear even, on their physiognomies. What's the matter, I asked myself torturedly. Why is this happening? And then came the evening when I understood what was what and why it was happening. As I recall that day, I never even got out of bed. I had drunk some beer and started grieving, so I simply lay there and grieved. And all 4 of them quietly sat down around me, 2 on chairs at the head of the bed, and 2 at the foot, looking me reproachably in the eye with the bitterness of people unable to apprehend some secret locked within me, just as if something had happened. "Listen, you," they said, "cut it out." "Cut out what?" I said with surprise, sitting up. "Cut out thinking that you're better than anyone else, that we're small potatoes and you're tops." "Hey, what are you talking about?" "This is what we're talking about. You drank beer today?" "Chukhlinka Kuskova." "I did." "A lot?" "A lot." "So get up and go." "Go where?" "As if you don't know. It works out like this. We're nothing but gnats and scoundrels, and you're tops." "Excuse me," I say. "I didn't suggest anything of the kind." "You did suggest it. You suggested it every day since you moved in with us. Not in word, but in deed. No, not even in deed, but by the absence of a deed. You negatively suggested it." "What deed and what absence?" I stared at them in wide-eyed amazement. "You know what deed. You don't go to the toilet, that's what. We felt right away there was something funny. From the time you've moved in, we've not seen you go to the toilet even once. Okay, we're not even speaking about number 2, but not even number 1. Not even number 1. All of this was said without a smile, in a deadly offended tone. "No, boys, you don't understand me." "We understand you perfectly." "Wait, no, you don't. I simply can't get up from the bed like you and announce publicly, 'Well, friends, I'm off to take a leak,' or 'Well, boys, I'm off to take a crap.' I can't do that." "And why can't you?" "We can, but you can't. It works out that you're better than we are. We're filthy animals, and you're a lily." "Not at all. How can I explain it to you?" "There's nothing to explain. It's all quite clear to us." "Just listen. Understand. In this world there are things—" "We know as well as you what kind of things there are and what there aren't." I couldn't get anywhere with them. They had penetrated to my very soul with their morose expressions. I started to give in. Well, of course, I also can, I could. That's it, you can like us, but we can't like you? You can do anything, of course, while we are unable to do anything. You're tops and we're spit under your feet. No, no, no. Here I got completely muddled. In this world, there are spheres where it's important to simply get up and go. Because of self-restraint or whatever, the precept of shame from the days of Ivan Turgenev and then the idealism of Herzen's youth. And after that, to get up and say, well, boys, it's insulting. I mean, supposing someone had a delicate heart. All four of them looked at me with mayhem in their eyes. I shrugged my shoulders and shut up hopelessly. Forget about Ivan Turgenev. Be careful what you say. We've read him ourselves. You'd better off saying whether you drank beer today. I did. How many bottles? 2 big ones and a small one. So get up and go. So we can all see you leave. Don't humiliate us and don't torture us. Get up and go. So I got up and went, not to relieve myself, but to make things easier for them. And when I returned, one of them said to me, with such feelings of shame, you'll always be alone and unhappy. Yes, he was absolutely right. I know many of God's intentions, but why he invested in me such chaste feelings, I've never been able to figure out. And this chastity of mine, this is the funniest thing about it, this chastity of mine has been interpreted so inside out that I have been refused even the most elementary courtesies. For instance, in Pavlovo Posad, they take me to meet the ladies and present me like this. Here you have the very famous Venedikt Yerofeev. He's very known for many reasons, but most of all, of course, for the fact that in his whole life he has never passed gas. What, never once? The ladies are astonished and all eyes. They look me over. Not once? I start getting flustered, of course. I cannot not get flustered in the presence of ladies, I say. Well, not really, somehow, sometimes, all the same. The ladies are even more astonished. Yerofeev, and how strange. Sometimes, all the same. I get completely flustered by all this and say something like, well, what's so, I too, after all, it's to pass gas. It's, after all, rather nominal. There's nothing at all phenomenal about passing gas. Just think, the ladies are crazy about all this. But later they trumpet it all over the Petushki line that he does it audibly, and he says that he does it not badly, that he does it quite well. So you see, and so it has been all my life. All my life this nightmare has haunted me, this nightmare of being understood not just wrong, but exactly in the opposite way to what I intend. I could tell you plenty about the subject, but if I start telling everything, I'd stretch it out as far as Petushki. I'd rather give you one single case, because it's a completely fresh one. How, a week ago, they removed me from post in the brigade for introducing a fallacious system of individualized charts. Our entire Moscow management quivers with fear whenever they merely remember those charts. And really, what was so bad about them? Where are we at the moment? Kuskovo. We're going to barrel right through Kuskovo without stopping. I should have another drink on the occasion, but first, I'd better tell you. Kuskovo Novogirevo. And then I'll go out and have a drink. So a week ago, I was kicked out of my job as brigade foreman, which I got in 5 weeks ago. In 4 weeks, as you can understand, I couldn't have introduced any great changes, and even if anyone thought that I introduced any, all the same, they didn't sack me for great changes. Before I was made foreman, our work schedule looked like this. In the morning, we'd sit down and play blackjack for money. Then we'd get up and unwind a drum of cable and put the cable underground. And then we'd sit down and everyone would take his leisure in his own way. Everyone, after all, has his own dream and temperament. One of us drank vermouth, someone else, a simpler soul, some freshen up eau de cologne, and someone else, more pretentious, would drink cognac at Sheremetyevo International Airport. Then we'd go to sleep. First thing next morning, we'd sit down drinking vermouth. Then we'd get up and pull yesterday's cable out of the ground and throw it away, since naturally it had gotten all wet. And then what? Then we'd sit down to play blackjack for money. And we'd go to sleep without finishing the game. In the morning, we'd wake up early. Lyocha, get up, time to play blackjack. Stasi, get up and let's finish the game. We'd get up and finish the game. And then before light, before sunrise, before drinking freshen up or vermouth, we'd grab a drum of cable and start to reel it out so that by the next day it would get wet and become useless. And so then, each to his own, for each has his own ideals, and so everything would start over again. When I became foreman, I took this schedule to its logical conclusion. Now we did it this way. One day we'd play blackjack, the next we'd drink vermouth, on the third day again blackjack, the fourth vermouth again, and our intellectual, he disappeared altogether at Sheremetyevo International. He just stayed there drinking cognac. We didn't so much as touch a cable drum, and even if I'd suggest touching one, the others would have started laughing like the gods, and then they would have beaten my face in with their fists. And then they would have gone their separate ways, playing blackjack for money, drinking vermouth, or drinking freshen up. And until the end came, everything went splendidly. Once a month, we'd send them our commemorative work projections, and twice a month, they'd send us our wages. We'd write, for instance, on the occasion of the upcoming leaden centennial, we undertake to eliminate work-related injuries. Or we'd write, on the occasions of the glorious centennial, we shall attain a part-time study rate in higher education of 1 out of every 6 workers. But what were work-related injuries in night school to us, if, because of blackjack, we didn't even get outside, and there were altogether only 5 of us? Oh, freedom and equality, oh, brotherhood, oh, life on the dole, oh, the sweetness of unaccountability. Oh, that most blessed of times in the life of my people, the time from the opening until the closing of the liquor stores. Having discarded shame and cares for the future, we lived an exclusively spiritual life. I broadened their horizons as much as I was able, and they liked when I did so, especially in matters concerning Israel and the Arabs. Here they were in complete ecstasy over Israel in particular, and they couldn't stop talking about Golda Meir and King Farouk, who I had mentioned by way of historical background. They would come in from whoring in the morning, and one of them, for instance, would say, "Goldie, may I?" And another would answer with a self-satisfied grin, "Farouk, you." And later, listen carefully, later, after they had found out why Pushkin died, I gave them Alexander Blok's poem, The Nightingale Garden, to read. There, at the center of the poem, if you throw out all of the perfumed shutters, the unilluminated mists, the rosy towers and smoking vestments, there, at the center of the poem, you will find the lyric hero, dismissed for work, for drunkenness, whoring, and absenteeism. I told them, it's a very contemporary book. I told them, you'll find it useful. And so, they read it, but in spite of everything, it had a depressing effect on them. Freshen Up disappeared immediately from all stores. It was impossible to say why, but blackjack was forgotten, vermouth was forgotten, Sheremetyevo International Airport was forgotten, and Freshen Up triumphed. Everyone drank only Freshen Up cologne. They drank up all the Freshen Up cologne from Dolgoprodny station to Sheremetyevo International Airport. And then suddenly it dawned on me. Venchka, what a blockhead you are. You're an out-and-out fool. Remember, you read in some sort of man of wisdom that the Lord God only looks after the fate of princes, leaving the princes to look after the fate of people. Well, you're the foreman and therefore a little prince. Where is your concern for the fate of your people? Have you looked into the souls of those parasites, into their dark reaches? Are you familiar with the dialectic of the hearts of these 4 shit-asses? You would have done better to understand what the Nightingale Garden and Freshen Up Cologne have in common, and why the Nightingale Garden is incompatible with both blackjack and vermouth, while Golda Meir and King Farouk are quite compatible with them. And so, it was then I introduced my notorious individualized charts, for which I was finally sacked. Novogirevo Reutova. Shall I tell you what kind of individualized charts they were? Now that's simple. On white vellum and black India ink, I drew 2 axes, one horizontal, the other vertical. All the workdays of the previous month were indicated sequentially on the horizontal axis, the amount of alcohol consumed calculated on the basis of degree proof on the vertical axis. Of course, only whatever was consumed on the job or before was tabulated, since the amount consumed in the evening remained relatively constant and was therefore of little interest to the serious researchers. Thus, at the end of the month, the worker came to me with his report. On such and such a day, such and such an amount of such and such consumed. On another day, so much of whatever. While I would illustrate all of that with a beautiful graph in black India ink on white vellum. Here, for you to admire, for instance, is the chart of Viktor Tatoshkin, member of the Komsomol. And this is Alexei Blindyaev, member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union since 1936, a seedy old dork. And here we have your faithful servant, ex-head cable fitter and author of the poem Moscow-Petushki. Aren't these truly interesting graphs? Interesting even to the most superficial eye. They looked variously like the Himalayas, the Tyrol, oil derricks, or even the Kremlin Wall, which admittedly I have never seen. Another one looked like the morning breeze over the Kama River, a gentle splash with rippling beads of lantern light. Still someone else's was like the beating of a proud heart, the song of the stormy petrel, in other words, pure Gorky, or like Ivazovsky's trashy painting of the ninth wave. And all this only looking at the external from the line. But, for anyone inquisitive, me for instance, the lines blurted out everything that was possible to blurt out about the man and the heart of the man, all of his qualities from sexuality to practical matters, as well as his faults, both sexual and practical. Also, the degree of steadiness of his temperament and the tendency to treachery, plus all of his unconscious secrets, if he had any unconscious secrets. I then examined with care, intently and close up, the soul of every shit-ass. But I didn't examine them for long. One fateful day, all the charts disappeared from my desk. It seems that on the same day, the foggy Alexei Blindyaev, member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union since 1936, sent off to the administrative sector our obligatory holiday projection, in which we all swore on the occasion of the upcoming centennial to be the same in our everyday life as at work. And perhaps out of foolishness or perhaps drunkenness, he put my individualized charts into the same envelope. As soon as I noticed them missing, I had a drink and grabbed my heart. At the administrative sector, also, they got the package, grabbed their heads, had drinks, and the same day drove into our district in their Moskvich. What did they uncover bursting into our office? They uncovered nothing except Lyocha and Stasik. Lyocha was dozing off on the floor, rolled up in a ball, and Stasik was puking. In a quarter of an hour, everything was decided. My star, which has blazed forth for 4 weeks, passed from view. The crucifixion took place exactly 30 days after the Ascension. There was but 1 month separating my Toulon from my Saint Elaine. To put it bluntly, they canned me as foreman, and in my place put that broken-down old dolt, Alexei Blindyaev, member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, 1936. And immediately after his designation, he got up from the floor and asked for a ruble, which they didn't give him. Stasik also left off puking and also asked them for a ruble, which they also didn't give him. They drank some red wine, got back into their Moskvich, and went back where they came from. And so I solemnly announce that till the end of my days I shall not undertake anything like of my sad brush with eminence. I will remain below, and from below I'll spit on their social ladder. Right, spit on every rung of it. In order to climb it, it's necessary to be forged steel-assed from head to toe, and I'm not. Anyway, they fired me. Me, the thoughtful prince, the analyst lovingly inspecting the souls of his people. Me, who was considered at the bottom a fink and a collaborator, and at the top a good-for-nothing with an unstable mind. The lower strata did not wish to see me, and the higher-ups couldn't speak of me without laughing. The top strata couldn't, and the lower strata does not want to, as Lenin might have put it. What does this betoken, connoisseurs of the philosophy of history? Absolutely right. Next payday, I'll get the shit beaten out of me according to the laws of good and beauty. Next payday being the day after tomorrow, which means that by the day after tomorrow, they'll be kicking my ass around. Phew. Who said phew? Is that you who said phew, angels? Yes, it was us. Phew, Vanya, what language? So judge for yourself, how could I help it? This whole mundane nonsense had gotten me so broken up that since that very day I haven't dried out. Before that, I can't say I was especially dried out, but at least I used to remember what I drank and in what order. Now I can't even recollect that. Everything is ups and downs. Everything in life is somehow up and down. First, I don't drink for a week straight, then I drink for 40 days straight. Then again, I don't drink for 4 days, and then I'll drink again for 6 months without a breather. Take now. We understand everything. They insulted you and your beautiful heart. Yes, on that day my beautiful heart struggled for a whole half hour without reason. As in the tragedies of the poet laureate Pierre Corneille, duty struggles with the heart's desire. But with me it was the reverse. The heart's desire struggled with reason and duty. The heart said to me, they've insulted you, they've dragged you through shit, go on and get drunk, Venichka, go on and get drunk as a skunk. This is what my beautiful heart said. But my reason? It grumbled and insisted, you won't get up Yerofeev, you won't go anywhere, and you won't drink a drop. While my heart responded, well, okay, Venichka, okay, you don't have to drink a lot, you don't have to get drunk as a skunk, drink 400 grams and let it go at that. No grams at all, reason enunciated. If you can't get along without anything, go on and drink 3 mugs of beer, Yerofeev, and forget about the hard stuff. But my heart whimpered, maybe just 200 grams, maybe... Ryutova Nikolskaya. Maybe just 150. And reason then, well, all right, Venya, it said. All right, drink 150, only don't go out anywhere. Stay home. What do you think? Did I drink 150 and sit at home? Ha ha. Since then, I've drunk 1.5 liters every day in order to sit at home, and all the same, I didn't sit at home. Because on the 6th day, I was so soused that the boundary between reason and heart had disappeared, and they both recited in one voice, go to Petushki, and Petushki will find your salvation and your joy. Go. Petushki. Petushki is the place where birds never cease singing, not by day or by night, where winter and summer the jasmine never ceases blooming. Perhaps there is such a thing as original sin, but no one ever feels burdened in Petushki by it. There, even those who don't dry out for weeks have bottomless, clear look in their eyes. There, every Friday, exactly at 11 o'clock, I'm met on the platform by that girl of the white eyes, white to off-white, that most beloved of trollops, that red-haired she-devil. And today is Friday. In less than 2 hours from now, exactly at 11 o'clock, she'll be there, with that whitish gaze in which there is no conscience and no shame. Come with me, oh, what things you will see. And what do I leave behind there where I'm coming from? A pair of scraggly socks and work pants, pliers and a rasp, wages on account and overhead expenses? That's what I left behind. And what lies ahead? What waits for me on the platform in Petushki? Red lashes, downcast and heaving shapes, and a braid from head to ass. And after the platform, trapper's vodka and port wine, bliss and writhing, ecstasy and convulsions. Oh, heavenly queen, how far is it to Petushki? And there, beyond Petushki, where the sky and the earth merge, and the she-wolf howls at the stars, in a smoky, louse-infested mansion unknowns to the whitish one, flowers, the pudgiest and dearest of little ones, my little ones. He knows the letter U and expects some nuts from me for that. How many of you know the letter U? At 3 years. Not one, but he knows and doesn't expect any reward but a cupful of nuts. Pray for me, angels, let my path be bright. Let there be no stumbling block. Let me see the city I have longed to see. And meanwhile, you forgive me. Meanwhile, look after my suitcase. I'm going away for 10 minutes. I have to drink some Kubanskaya so that inspiration doesn't leave me. And so I got up again and went down to the car to the vestibule. And I drank not as I did near Karcharovo. No. Now I drank without nausea and without a sandwich, straight from the bottle, throwing my head back like a pianist. Conscious both of the grandeur of the fact that it was just beginning and of what lay ahead. Nikolskaya Saltykovskaya. These 13 swallows will bring you no joy, I thought, taking the 13th. You know yourself that if you drink it from the bottle, the second morning dose beclouds the soul, even if it isn't for long, only up to the third dose taken from a glass, but all the same, it beclouds the soul. Don't you know that? So let it. Let your future be bright, let your tomorrow be even brighter. But why do the angels become troubled just as soon as you start talking about the joys of the Petushki platform and after? Do they think that nobody is waiting for me there? Or that the train will be derailed? Or that ticket inspectors will put me off in Kupovna? Or that somewhere around kilometer 105 I'll get sleepy from the wine and doze off and be strangled like a young boy or cut up like a little girl? Why are the angels troubled? Why have they fallen silent? My tomorrow is bright. Our tomorrow is brighter than our yesterday and our today. But who will see it to that day? And after tomorrow won't be worse than our day before yesterday? Right. You put that well, Venichka. Our tomorrow and so on. That was nicely put and clever besides. But in general you don't have many brains. Don't you know yourself? Be at peace, Venichka, if only because your soul is roomier than your mind. What do you need a mind for? If you've got a conscience and even more than that, taste. Conscience and taste, that's more than enough, making brains downright superfluous. When did you first notice that you're a fool, Venichka? Here's when. When I was reapproached at one and the same time for two things in popular opposition, for being both boring and frivolous. Because if somebody is intelligent and boring, he doesn't descend to frivolity. But if he is frivolous and intelligent, he won't permit himself to be boring. Me, I'm a marshmallow who manages to be both. And should I tell you why? Because I am sick in my soul, though I don't look it. Because since that time, as I remember my condition, I do nothing but simulate mental health, expending everything without a scrap left over, all powers, mental, physical, whatever. This is what makes me boring. Everything that you speak of, everything that occupies your time is forever alien to me. while that which occupies me, I'll not say a word about. Maybe from fear I'll be taken for crazy, maybe from something else, but at all the same time, not a word. I remember that already a long time ago when I would hear somebody talking or arguing about some kind of nonsense. I would say, you really want to go into that nonsense? And people would be amazed at that and say, in what way is this nonsense anyway? If this is nonsense, then what isn't? And I'd say, oh, I don't know, but some things aren't. I'm not saying now that the truth is known to me or that I've approached it close enough. Not at all. But I've gotten close enough to it so that it's convenient to look it over. And I look and I see, and for that reason I'm sorrowful. And I don't believe that any one of you has dragged around within himself this bitter, bitter mishmash. I'm in a quandary over saying what this mishmash is composed of, and all the same, you would never understand. But mostly there's sorrow and fear in it. Sorrow and fear, most of all, and then muteness. And every day, the first thing in the morning, my beautiful heart exudes this infusion and bathes in it till night. I know this happens with others if somebody dies suddenly, if the most important being on earth dies suddenly. But with me, this is an eternal condition. At least understand this. How am I not to be boring, and how am I not to drink Kubanskoye? I've earned the right. I know better than you that world sorrow is not a fiction perpetrated by the old writers, because I carry it within myself and know what it is, and I do not wish to hide this fact. One must get used to speaking of one's virtues bravely to people's faces. Who is to know, if not ourselves, to what degree we are good? For example, do you know Kromskoy's painting Inconsolable Grief? Well, of course, you've seen it. Imagine that some cat or some other has just knocked on the floor some kind of a file of severed porcelain belonging to the grief-stricken princess or young noblewoman, or that it has torn into shreds some priceless peignoir or other. Would she be storming around or flailing about with her hands? Of course not, because all that would have been nonsense to her, because for a day or three she is more elevated than any kind of peignoir or cat or severus porcelain. So how is it? Is this princess boring? She is impossibly boring, that's certain. Is she frivolous? In the highest degree. Just like me. Now you know why I'm the saddest of sots, a lightweight among idiots, and gloomier than any shit-ass. Why I'm a fool, a demon, and a bag of wind all at the same time. It's great that you've understood it all. Let's drink to understanding with what's left of the Kubanskoye right from the bottle, and let's drink it straight down. This is how it's done. Saltykovskaya Kuchina. The rest of the Kubanskoye was still seething somewhere not far from my throat, when the words, "Why did you drink it all, Venya? That's too much," came from heaven. I was hardly able to breathe out in response. In the whole world, all the way from Moscow to Petushki, there has never been anything like too much for me. And why are you fearful for me, heavenly angels? We fear that that I'm going to start swearing again? Oh, no. I simply didn't know that you were with me constantly, or I wouldn't have before either. Minute by minute, I'm getting happier. And if I start to get foul-mouthed, it's only because I'm happy. How silly you are. No, we're not silly. We're only afraid that, once again, you won't get there. Won't get where? I won't get to Petushki? To her? To my shameless tsaritsa? With eyes like clouds? You're really funny. No, we're not funny. We're afraid you won't get to him, and he won't get any nuts. What do you mean? While I live? What do you mean? Last Friday, it's true, she wouldn't let me go to see him. Last Friday I went limp, angels, and I took to staring at her white belly, round as the sky and the earth. But today I'll get there. If only I don't croak, killed by fate. Today I'll be with her, and I'll graze among the lilies till morning. But tomorrow... The poor kid, the angel sighed. Poor kid? Why poor? Tell me, angels, you'll be right with me up to Petushki? You won't fly off? Oh no, we can't ride as far as Petushki. We'll be flying off as soon as you smile. You haven't smiled once today. As soon as you'll smile for the first time, we're off. And there on the platform you'll meet me, right? Yes, we'll meet you there. You're lovely creatures, angels. Only why that poor kid? He's not a poor kid at all. The little one who knows the letter U, like his own 5 fingers? The little one who loves his father as himself? Okay, suppose he was sick the Friday before last, and everyone there was afraid for him. But then he got better as soon as he saw me. Yes, gracious God, make it so that nothing has happened to him and so that nothing ever will. Make it, Lord, so that even if he has fallen from the roof or the stove, he won't have broken either his arm or his leg. If he happens to see a knife or a razor, let him not play with them. Lord, please find other playthings for him. Lord, when his mother strokes the fire, which he loves to watch, drag him off to one side if you can, Lord. It pains me to think that he might get burned. And if he should get sick, let him start getting better the minute he sees me. Yes, when I arrived the last time, they told me he was asleep. He was sick and had a fever. I drank lemon vodka by his crib, and they left me alone with him. He really did have a fever. Even the dimple on his cheek was all warm, and it was curious that such a little nothing could have a fever. I drank 3 glasses of lemon vodka before he woke up, and looked at me and my 4th glass, which I had in my hand. I talked with him for a long time and said, "You know what, kid? Don't die. Think about it. After all, you can already draw letters, so you can think for yourself. It's foolish to die knowing only the letter U, and nothing else. You understand that it's foolish?" "I understand, Father," the way he said that. "Everything they say, the eternally living angels and the eternally dying children, is so important that I feel I should write down the words in flowing longhand. But I would rather write everything we say in tiny letters, because what we say is more or less nonsense." "I understand, Father. You'll get up again, kid, and dance around to my little piggy's farandole. Do you remember? When you were 2 years old, you danced to it. Music by Father and words too. They're such little dears, such funny little devilkins. They snatched and scratched and bit off my tummy. And you've danced like a tiny fool, one hand on your waist and waving a handkerchief with the other. Since February I whimpered and whined, and towards the end of August I turned up my toes. Do you love your father, kid?" "Very much." "There, see? Don't die. When you've not died and you get better, you'll dance something for me again. Only we won't dance the farandole. It's got words that don't fit. Towards the end of August I turned my toes up. That doesn't work. 1, 2, 3, lay me down to sleep would be much better." I finished my 4th glass and got upset. "When you're not around, kid, I'm entirely alone. You understand? You played in the woods this summer, right? And probably you remember the pines there. That's me, like a pine tree. It's very, very tall and very, very lonely. That's me too. It's like me, looking only into the sky, and whatever is underneath it doesn't see and doesn't want to see. It's green and will always be green until it tumbles down. That's me too. Until I tumble down, I'll always be green." "Green," the little one responded. "Take the dandelion, for instance. It sways in the wind and scatters, and it's sad to look at. That's me too. I scatter in the wind. Isn't it disgusting to see how I scatter in the wind for days on end?" "Disgusting," the little one repeated after me, and smiled blissfully. Even now I remember his disgusting, and I smile, also blissfully, and I see the angels nod at me from afar and fly away as they had promised. Кучина железнодорожная. But first of all, I'll see her. First of all, to see her on the platform with her braid from head to ass, to blush and to burn, and to get drunk lying on my back, and to graze among the lilies, so I die from sheer exhaustion. Bring bracelets and necklaces. I want to dress up like a queen. Silk and velvet, pearls and diamonds, for my king has come back to me. This girl is more than a girl. She's a temptress. She's a ballad in A-flat major. This woman, this red-haired bitch, isn't a woman. She's a witch. You ask, but Venechka, where did you dig her up, and where did she come from, this red-haired bitch? How can there be anything worthwhile in Petushki? There can be, I say to you, and I'll say it so loud that Moscow and Petushki will tremble. Moscow, no. That couldn't happen with Moscow, but with Petushki it could. And what if she is a bitch? If you want to know where I dug her up, if you're interested, just listen, since you're so shameless, and I'll tell you the whole story. As I told you before, in Petushki, the jasmine never stops blooming and the birds always sing. So exactly 10 weeks ago, today, the birds were singing and the jasmine was blooming. And it was also the birthday of someone or other. In addition, there was also an endless stream of liquor, 10 bottles or 12 or 25. And there was anything one could hope for, from beer on tap to bottled stuff. And what else, you ask? And what else? There were also 2 lads and 3 young things getting drunk, one girl drunker than the next, and all hell breaking loose. So I mixed some Rossiyskoye with Zhiguli beer and drank it, and looked at all 3 of them and perceived something in them. Exactly what I can't say, so I mixed up another drink, and the more I perceived of that something, the more I mixed and drank, and therefore the more sharply I perceived it. But a responding perception I felt only in one of them. Oh, those red lashes longer than the hair on your heads. Oh, the innocent whiteness of her eyes. Oh, that whiteness. Oh, that bewitching dove-like wings. Is that you, Yerofeev? She leaned toward me slightly, blinking her lashes. Well, sure, nobody but me. Oh, the intuitive creature, how did she guess? I've read some of your stuff, and I never thought that anyone could get so much drivel onto half 100 pages. It's beyond imagination. Beyond? Come on. Flattered, I mixed up another drink. If you'd like, I'll do better. I'll get even more in the next time. And that's how it all started. That's how Oblivion began, a 3-hour gap. What did I drink? What did I talk about? In what proportions did I mix my drinks? Perhaps there wouldn't have been any gap if I hadn't mixed my drinks. But no matter what, I came to after 3 hours, and this is the position I was in when I came to it, sitting at the table mixing a drink. And the two of us were alone, she next to me, laughing at me like a child of paradise. I thought, unheard of. This is a woman whose bosom to this day has been seized only by presentiment. This is a woman who, until me, no one has so much as felt the pulse of. Oh, that blissful itch in the soul and all over. And she got up and drank 100 more grams. She drank standing up with her head tossed back like a pianist. And having drunk, she breathed out everything from inside her, everything that was holy in her, everything. And then she arched her back like an elegant bitch and started to make wild movements with her hips with such suppleness that I couldn't look at her without shuddering. Of course you'll ask. You've got no conscience, so you'll ask. So then what, Venedikt, did she? What can I say? Well, of course she. Not much. She said straight out, I want you to embrace me masterfully with your right hand. Haha, masterfully and with your right hand. I, who had gotten to the point where I couldn't even touch her torso. I wanted to, but I couldn't find it, much less embrace her masterfully. Oh, move your sloping sides, I thought, mixing a drink. Move, Enchantress. Move, Cleopatra. Move your splendid body, whore, leaving the poet's heart weary. All that I have I fling today upon the white altar of Aphrodite. This is what I was thinking. But she laughed and went up to the table and gulped down another 150 grams, for she was perfection, and perfection knows no bounds. Железнодорожная черная. She gulped it down and threw off her dress. If after that she takes off the rest, the earth will shudder and the stones will sing. But she said, well now, Venedikt, is it nice here with me? And crushed by desire, I awaited the fall. Gasping for breath, I said to her, I've lived exactly 30 years in the world, but never before have I seen any place as nice as this. What was I to do next? Be tender in an insinuating way or crude in a captivating way? The devil knows. I never really understood how or when to approach a drunken girl. Up to this point, should I tell you? Up to this point, I knew little about them, drunken or sober. Of course, I rushed after them in my thoughts, but the moments I would catch up, my heart would stop in fright. I had designs, but not intentions. Whenever any intentions appeared, my designs disappeared, and though I rushed after them in my heart, my thought stopped in fright. I was contradictory. On the other hand, I liked it that they had waste while we haven't had waste at all. This awoke in me, how should I put it, bliss? Yes, it awoke a feeling of bliss in me. But on the other hand, they stabbed Marat with a penknife, though Marat was incorruptible and shouldn't have been stabbed. This thought also killed off any feelings of bliss. On the other hand, like Karl Marx, I like the weakness in them. That is, for example, how they are compelled to squat down when urinating. This pleased me. This filled me with, well, what? With what? A feeling of bliss, really. Well, yes. This filled me with a feeling of bliss. But on the other hand, didn't one of them shoot at Lenin? This killed the bliss again. Squat away, but why shoot at Lenin? It would have been strange to speak of bliss after that. Now, I've gotten distracted. And so what was I to do? Be threatening or captivating? She herself made the choice for me, leaning back and stroking my cheek with her ankle. There was something like encouragement in this, something like the blowing of a kiss. And then, that turbid, bitchy whiteness of her pupils, whiter than delirium, whiter than the seventh heaven, and her stomach was like the sky and the earth. As soon as I saw it, I all but started to weep from inspiration, to tremble and stream all over. And everything got mixed together, roses and lilies, and in little tangles, the whole damp, shuddering entrance to Eden and oblivion. Oh, the moist sobbing of those depths, oh, the shamelessness of those eyes, oh, harlot with eyes like clouds, oh, sweet navel. Everything got mixed together, and I know that today will be the same intoxication and the same slaughter. You'll tell me, why do you think, Venedikt, you are the only slaughterer she's got? And what is it to me? And to you all the more. Even if she isn't faithful, let her. Age and fidelity causes wrinkles, and I don't want her to have a wrinkled mug. Let her be unfaithful. Not exactly let her, of course, but no matter, let her. You see, she's woven all from bliss and aromas. She's not one to be paved or beaten. You've got to breathe her in. Once I tried to count all her innermost curves, and I couldn't. I counted up to 27 and got so dizzy from faintness that I drank some Zubrovka and gave up counting. But more beautiful than anything are her forearms, especially when she moves them, laughing ecstatically, and says, Yerofeev, you sinful shit-ass. Oh, the she-devil. Is it possible not to breathe in someone like her? She could also be venomous, but that was all nonsense, a form of self-defense and of something feminine. I understand very little about these things. In any case, when I had gotten to the core of her, there was no venom left, just strawberries and cream. On one Friday, for instance, when I was really warm from the Zubrovka, I said to her, "Come on, let's be together our whole life. I'll carry you off to Lobnya, clothe you in purple and linen, and make a little extra working on telephone boxes while you'll sit at home sniffing something. Lilies, let's say. Come on." But silently she made a fig with her hand. Languidly I drew it to my nostrils, breathed it in, and started to cry. But why? Why? She made me another fig. I drew it in and frowned and started crying again. But why? I implored. Answer. Why? And then she started sobbing and flopped onto my neck. Lunatic, madman, you know exactly why. And since then, almost every Friday the same thing has been repeated, the tears and the figs. But today something will get decided, because today is our 13th Friday, and I'm getting closer and closer to Petushki, Heavenly Queen. Chornaya Kupavna. I pace around in the vestibule, smoking the whole time. And you say that you're lonely and misunderstood? You who have so much in your soul and beyond it? You who have someone like that in Petushki and someone like that beyond Petushki? Lonely? No, I'm not lonely anymore, not misunderstood anymore. For 12 weeks I've been understood. All the past is gone. Why, I remember when I turned 20, at that time I was hopelessly alone. And my birthday was a despondent one. Yuri Petrovich and Nina Vasilievna came. They bought me a bottle of Stolichna and a can of vegetable stuffed cabbage. And I felt so lonely, so impossibly lonely because of those cabbage rolls and the Stolichna, so that against my will I started to cry. And when I turned 30 last fall, the day was dismal, like the day when I turned 20. Borya came with some half-intelligent poetess. Vadya and Lida came, Lyodik and Volodya, and they bought me, what? 2 bottles of Stolichna and 2 cans of stuffed tomatoes. And such despair, such torment possessed me because of those tomatoes that I wanted to cry but now couldn't. Does this mean that in the course of those 10 years I had become less lonely? No, it doesn't mean that. Does it mean that my soul had become coarsened in those 10 years and my heart hardened? It doesn't mean that either, more likely the opposite. But all the same, I wanted to cry but couldn't. Why? Very likely I'll be able to explain that to you if I can find some kind of analogy for it from the world of the beautiful. Let's say, for instance, a quiet person drinks 750 grams and becomes boisterous and full of joy. If he adds another 700, he will become even more boisterous and full of joy? No, he'll quiet down again. It'll even seem on the surface that he had sobered up. But does this mean that he has in fact? Never happens. He's just gotten piggishly drunk and is quiet for that reason. It's the same with me. I did not become less lonely in those 30 years, and my heart did not become calloused. Quite the contrary. But if you look at it on the surface, no. Take now, to live and live. Living is not at all boring. Only Nikolai Gogol was bored and King Solomon. If we've already lived through 30 years, it's necessary to try and live another 30. Man is mortal, that's my opinion, but if we've already been born, there's nothing to be done about it. We must live for a little. Life is beautiful. That's my opinion. Really, do you know how many mysteries there are in the world? And what abyss of unstudied mysteries and what an expanse of space there is for those who draw these mysteries to themselves? Here's the simplest of examples. What if, yesterday, you drank, let's say, 750 grams, but in the morning it was unthinkable to be hungover, work and the like, and only long after midday, having suffered through 6 or 7 hours, you finally have something to drink in order to ease your soul? So how much do you drink? Well, let's say 150. Why isn't your soul any easier? The queasiness, which has accompanied you since morning because of the 150 grams, has been replaced with a queasiness of a different category, a shy queasiness. Your cheeks get crimson like a horse, and under your eyes such blue appears as if the day before you hadn't drunk your 750, but had gotten your face kicked around instead. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you have fallen victim to your 6 or 7 hours at work. You have to have the ability to choose your work. There aren't any bad jobs or bad professions. One must respect every calling. It is necessary just after waking to drink something right away, or no, I'm lying, not something, but precisely the same thing that you were drinking the day before, and drink it every 40 or 45 minutes so that towards the evening you have drunk 250 grams more than the day before. Then there won't be any queasiness or shyness, and you will have such a white face it'll look as though it hasn't been kicked around for 6 months. So you see how many puzzles there are in nature, how many blank spots everywhere. But the empty-headed youth coming up to take our place doesn't seem to see the mysteries of existence. He lacks vision and initiative, and I doubt that any of them have any brains in their heads. What could be more noble, for example, than experimenting on oneself? At their age, I would do this. On Thursday evening, I'd drink, all at one go, 3.5 liters of beer and vodka mixed. I'd drink it and lie down to sleep without getting undressed and with only one thought: will I wake up on Friday or not? And all the same, I wouldn't wake up on Friday. I'd wake up on Saturday, and not in Moscow either, but under the railroad embankment in the Narofamинsk region. And later, I would, with great effort, recollect and gather the facts, and having gathered them, I'd put them together, and having put them together, I would start again to recreate by straining my memory with the most penetrating analysis. And later, I'd go from observation to abstraction. In other words, thoughtfully, I would have a morning after drink, and finally find out what happened on Friday. Ever since childhood, since thumb-sucking days, my favorite word has been dare. And as God is my witness, I took plenty of chances. If you took the chances I did, you'd either burst your gut or have a stroke. Or actually, if at your age you took the chances I did, one fine morning you'd wake up dead. But I woke up every morning and started taking chances again. For example, approaching 18 years of age, I noticed that from the first shot through the 5th, I would ripen, but beginning with the 6th, Kupavna, kilometer 33. And on the 9th, I would go soft. I'd go soft that on the 10th I would have to shut my eyes. And what would I think in my naivety? I would think that I must, by force of will, overcome the queasiness and drink the 11th. Then perhaps return to a maturity will occur. But no, nothing. At this point, I experienced no return. I mulled this puzzle over for 3 years straight. I mulled it over daily, and all the same I'd fall asleep after the 10th. And actually it turned out to be so simple. If you've already drunk the 5th shot, you must drink the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th immediately, at one go, but drink them in an ideal sense. That is, drink them only in your imagination. In other words, you must, by force of will alone, and at one go, not drink number 6, 7, 8, and 9. And having withstood the pause, take off directly on the 10th, just as with the 9th Symphony of Dvorak, which is actually the 9th, but conditionally called the 5th, the same with you. Call your 6th your 9th, and be sure that now you'll reach maturity without hindrance, and do so from the 6th, the 9th, up to and including the 28th, the 32nd. That is, reach maturity to the point beyond which lie insanity and piggishness. No, honestly, I despise the generation coming up to take our place. It inspires repulsion and terror in me, and I don't think Maxim Gorky will sing songs about them. I don't say that at their age we dragged around with ourselves a whole load which was holy. Good Lord, no, sacred things touched us lightly, but on the other hand there were so many things on which we did not spit. But they spit on everything. Why don't they take up? Here's what. At their age, I would drink with large intervals. I'd drink and stop drinking, drink and stop drinking again. I've got no right to judge whether morning depression is more lively if you make it a daily habit, that is, if from age 16 you drank 450 grams at 7 in the evening. Of course, were my life to start over again, I would try it, but would they? Would they? If only that. While how much uncertainty do other spheres of human life conceal with themselves? Just suppose, for example, that one day you drink ordinary white vodka exclusively, but the next day other stuff exclusively. On the first day, towards midnight, you stop like possessed. Towards midnight, you burn so that Ukrainian girls can jump over you, just as they jump over the bonfire on Ivana Kupala Eve. It's quite clearly they will make it over if you've drunk ordinary white vodka exclusively. But if you have drunk only other kinds from morning till night, then the girls won't be jumping over you on Ivan Kupalo Eve. On the contrary, let a girl sit down on Ivan Kupalo Eve, and you won't be able to jump over her. On the condition, of course, that you only drank the other stuff all day. Yes, but how much do experiments in narrow areas tell us? Take, for example, hiccuping. That is the study of drunken hiccuping in its mathematical aspect. For goodness sake, they cry from every side. Really, isn't there anything else in the world besides that? Isn't there anything which you could? I cry to all sides. No, there is nothing. No, there is nothing else. I'm no fool. I know that in this world there is also psychiatry and extragalactic astronomy. But really, all that is not for us. All of that was thrust onto us by Peter the Great and Dmitri Kibalchich, the Decembrist astronomer. And really, our calling is not here at all. Our calling is an entirely different direction. In the direction where I will take you if you're willing. You'll say, this calling is vile and false, but I'll say to you, I repeat, there are no false callings. Respect is due everyone who toils. And I spit on you, finally. Better to leave extragalactic astronomy to the Yanks and psychiatry to the Germans. Let all pigdom like the Spanish to go look at their bullfights. Let the scoundrel of Africa build his Aswan Dam. All the same, the wind will blow it away. Let Italy choke on its idiotic bel canto. But I repeat, we shall take up hiccuping. Kilometer 33, Electrougly. In order to begin this investigation, it goes without saying that it will be necessary to introduce it either an sich, Immanuel Kant's term meaning to induce in yourself, or to induce in another, but for your own reasons, that is für sich, term of Immanuel Kant. Best of all, of course, is to introduce it both an sich and für sich. Like so, drink something strong for 2 hours, Starka, Trappers, or Hunter's vodka. Drink it in a large glass. If this is difficult for anyone, he may permit himself a small bite to eat, but something unpretentious, a piece of not very fresh bread, spiced sprats, plain sprats, or sprats and tomato sauce. Then take an hour's break. But don't eat anything and don't drink anything. Just let your muscles relax and don't exert yourself. And you will be convinced towards the end of the hour it will begin. When you hiccup for the first time, you'll be astonished by its unexpectedness. Then you'll be astonished by the inevitability of the second, third, fourth time, etc. But if you are no fool, you'll soon stop being astonished and get to work. Write down on paper at what intervals your hiccups deign to honor you. In seconds, of course. 8, 13, 7, 3, 18. Try to find here some kind of periodicity, albeit the most approximate. Even if you're a fool, attempt to deduce any kind of idiotic formula in order to somehow predict the length of the next interval at least. No matter, life will overturn all your silly models. 17, 3, 4, 17, 1, 3, 20, 4, 7, 7, 7, 18. They say that the leaders of the world proletariat, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, thoroughly studied the schema of social formula and on this basis were able to foresee much. But here they would be powerless to foresee the least thing. You have encountered, following your own whim, into the sphere of the inevitable. Be at peace and be patient. Life will disgrace both your elementary and your higher mathematics. 13, 15, 4, 12, 4, 5, 28. It is not so with every individual's triumphs and failures, ecstasies and afflictions. Isn't there the slightest hint of regularity? Is it not thus that the catastrophes in the life of humanity follow one another in confusion? Law is higher than us all. The hiccup is higher than any law. And as its onset so astonished us not long before, so its ending will astonish us. An ending which, like death, you can neither predict nor stave off. 22, 14, that's all. Then silence. And in this silence your heart says to you, it is indiscernible and we are helpless. We are deprived of freedom of will and are in the power of the arbitrary, which has no name and from which there is no escape. We are mere trembling creatures, while it is omnipotent. It, that is the right hand of God, which is raised above us all, and before which only cretins and rogues do not bow their heads. He is incomprehensible, and therefore he is. And thus be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Electrougly, kilometer 43. Yes, drink more, eat less. This is the best method of avoiding self-conceit and surface-level atheism. Take a look at a hiccuping atheist. He is distracted and dark of visage. He suffers and he is ugly. Turn away from him. Spit and look at me when I begin to hiccup. A believer in overcoming who is without any thought of rebellion. I believe in the fact that he is good, and that therefore I myself am good. He is good. He leads me from suffering towards the light, from Moscow to Petushki, through the torments of the Kursk station, through the purgatory at Kuchina, through the fancies of Kupavna, to the light of Petushki. Durch Leiden Licht. I paced about in the vestibule in even more terrible agitation and kept on smoking. And here a clear thought stuck in my brain like lightning. What else am I to drink so that this exaltation will not be extinguished? What am I to drink in thy name? O misfortune, I have nothing that would be worthy of thee. Kubanske that's rot, while Rossiyske it's ridiculous to even speak of it in thy presence. And stout red at 137. God! No, if I get to Petushki unharmed today, I'll make a cocktail which it will be possible to drink without the shame in the presence of God and man. In the presence of man and in the name of God. I'll call it Jordan Waters, or the Star of Bethlehem. If I forget about that in Petushki, please remind me. Don't laugh. I have a vast experience in the creation of cocktails. From Moscow to Petushki, people drink these cocktails not knowing the name of their creator. They drink the balsam of Canaan. They drink the tear of a Komsomol girl. And it's right that they should do so. If it is true that we cannot wait to be favored in name, we must wrest her favors from her. Then it goes without saying that it is necessary to know exact recipes. If you wish, I will give you these recipes. To drink vodka, even from the bottle, is nothing other than vanity and wariness of spirit. To mix vodka and eau de cologne, there is a certain caprice, but no pathos whatsoever. If you drink a glass of balsam of Canaan, there is caprice and an ideal and pathos, and beyond that, a hint of the metaphysical. Which component of the balsam of Canaan do we value above all else? Well, the methylated spirits, of course. But after all, the methylated spirits, being only an object of inspiration, are themselves simply devoid of this inspiration. What is this in this case that we value in the methylated spirits even more? Of course, the naked taste sensation. And even more than that, the miasma which it exudes. In order to set off from this miasma, a touch of fragrance is necessary. For this reason, velvet beer, or best of all, Ostankino or Czech beer, is added to the proportion 1:2, with 1 part refined furniture polish. I won't remind you how to refine furniture polish. Any child knows that. For some reason, no one in Russia knows why Pushkin died, but how to refine furniture polish, that everyone knows. In any case, write down the recipe for balsam of Canaan. As one of our hack writers might have put it, life is given to man only one time, and it must be lived so as to not make mistakes in recipes. And so, methylated spirits, 100 grams, velvet beer, 200 grams, refined furniture polish, 100 grams. And so you have before you balsam of Canaan. In plain speech, it's called a black fox, and the liquid is a blackish brown of moderate strength and a staunch aroma that is really not an aroma, but a hymn of democratic youth, because this cocktail fosters vulgarity and dark forces in the drinker. I've observed this many times. And to stave off the fostering of these dark forces, there are 2 means. First, not to drink the balsam of Canaan, and second, to drink in its place the cocktail called the Spirit of Geneva. There is not a drop of nobility in the Spirit of Geneva, but it does have a bouquet. You'll ask, what is the secret of this bouquet? I'll answer you, I don't know what the secret of the bouquet is. Then you will give me some thought and ask, so what is the key? And the key to it lies in the fact that you shouldn't replace white lilac eau de cologne with any other kind. Not jasmine, not sweetbriar, not lily, not of the valley. In the world of components, there are no equivalents, as the old alchemists said, and they knew what they were talking about. That is, your lily of the valley silver is not white lilac, even in the moral sense, not to speak of bouquet. Lily of the valley, for example, excites the mind, disturbs the conscience, strengthens a sense of one's inalienable rights. While white lilac, on the other hand, soothes the consciousness and reconciles man to the sore spots of life. Once I drank a whole phial of Lily of the Valley silver, sat down and started crying. Why was I crying? Because I recalled my mama, recalled her and couldn't forget her. Mama, I said, and I cry. And then again, mama, I say, and once more I cry. Someone else would have just sat there crying, but me, I grabbed a phial of lilac and drank it. And what do you think? My tears dried up. I was overcome by idiotic laughter, and as for Mama, I even forgot her name. Therefore, how ridiculous someone preparing the Spirit of Geneva seems if he adds Lily of the Valley silver to the athlete's foot remedy. Listen to the exact recipe. White lilac, 50 grams. Athlete's foot remedy, 50 grams. Zhiguli beer, 200 grams. Alcohol varnish, 150 grams. But if someone doesn't want to tramp the universe to no good purpose, let him send to the devil both the balsam of Canaan and the Spirit of Geneva. He had better sit down at the table and prepare himself some tear of a Komsomol girl. Odorous and strange, this cocktail. Why is it odorous? You'll find out later. I'll explain first why is it strange. Somebody drinking just vodka will keep his right mind and a clear head, or he'll lose them both at once. But in the case of a tear, it's funny. If you drink 100 grams of this tear, and your head is clear as if you had never had a right mind. You drink 100 more grams, and you'll be surprised at yourself. Where did all the right mind come from, and where did your clear head get to? Even the tear's recipe itself, it's fragrant. And from the prepared cocktail, from its odorousness, it is possible to lose consciousness for a moment. I did, for example. Lavender toilet water 15 grams, verbena 15 grams, herbal lotion 30 grams, nail polish 2 grams, mouthwash 150 grams, lemon soda 150 grams. The mixture prepared this way must be stirred for 20 minutes with a sprig of honeysuckle. Some, it is true, maintain that in case of necessity it is permissible to substitute daughter for honeysuckle. But this is both incorrect and criminal. Caught me up left and right, but you won't get me to stir it with daughter. The tear I'll stir with honeysuckle. I simply die laughing when I see someone stirring a tear with daughter and not honeysuckle. But enough of the tear. Now I present to you the last and best, labor's crown and its own supreme reward, as the poet said. In any event, I present to you the cocktail Bitch's Brew, a beverage which overshadows all others. This is more than a beverage, this is the music of spheres. What is the finest thing in the world? The struggle for the liberation of humanity. But what is even finer is this. Write it down. Zhiguli beer 100 grams, Sadko the Rich Guest shampoo 30 grams, dandruff treatment 70 grams, athlete's foot remedy 30 grams, small bug killer 20 grams. The whole thing is steeped up for a week in cigar tobacco and served at the table. I have received letters, incidentally, in which idle readers have recommended one more thing, that the infusion obtained in the above fashion should be run through a colander, i.e. run it through and go to bed. All these supplements are corrections come from fabbiness of imagination, from an insufficiency of mental scope. That's where these absurd corrections come from. Bitch's Brew can be served at the table and should be drunk with the appearance of the first star in large gulps. After only 2 goblets of this cocktail, a person will become so inspired that it is possible to go up to him for half an hour, standing 1.5 meters away, spit in his face without him saying a thing. Kilometer 43, Kharpunova. Did you at least manage to write something down? In Petushki, I promise to share with you the secrets of Jordan's waters. If I get there alive, if God is gracious. But now, let us think about what I'm to drink next. What sort of a combination can I create out of this junk that's left in my suitcase? Aunt Clara's kiss? Maybe. I won't be able to squeeze any other kind of kisses out of the thing, except the first kiss and Aunt Clara's thing. Should I explain to you what a kiss is? A kiss means any red wine mixed 50-50 with any vodka. Let's take dry grape plus pepper vodka or Kubanskaya, that's a first kiss. A mix of homebrew and port wine number 33, that's a forced kiss or a rape kiss, or more simply a cold kiss, or more simply Lenin's lady. There are quite a few of these variations, kisses. In order not to feel like throwing up from all these kisses, it is necessary to get used to them from childhood. I've got Kubanska in my suitcase, but no dry grape, which means that a first kiss is out of the question for me. I can only dream of it. But I do have about 1.5 quarter bottles of Rossiyskaya and the stout rosé at a ruble 37. Together they would make us an Aunt Clara's kiss. I agree with you, its taste properties are plain and it is nauseating in the highest degree, but what's to be done if there isn't any dry wine? It will simply be necessary to drink Aunt Clara's kiss. I went back into the car in order to mix my junk up into a kiss. Oh, it's been so long since I was here last, since I got out at Nikolskaya. As last time, dozens of eyes looked at me, big eyes ready for anything. Slipping out of orbit, my homeland was looking me in the eye. Before, after the 150 grams of Rossiyskaya, these eyes pleased me. Now, after 500 grams of Kubanskaya, I was in love with those eyes, in love like a madman. I all but lurched into the car, though I went over towards my bench quite independently, and just in case, smiling slightly. I went over to it and was dumbstruck. Where is my quarter bottle of Rossiyskaya? Where is the very quarter bottle which at Hammer and Sickle I finished only half off? Right from Hammer and Sickle, it has stood by my suitcase with almost 100 grams left in it. Where is it now? I looked them all over, but no one batted an eyelash. No, I'm positively in love and I'm crazy. Where did the angels fly off to? They were looking after the suitcase in my absence. When did they fly off? In the Kuchina region? Right. That means that it was stolen between Kuchina and kilometer 43. While I was sharing with you the ecstasy of my feelings, while I was initiating you into the secrets of being, I was being deprived of my Aunt Clara's kiss. In the simplicity of my soul, I did not once look into the car all that time. But now, enough of simplicity, as the dramatist Ostrovsky put it, and finita la commedia. Not all simplicity is holy, and not every comedy is divine. Enough of fishing in muddy water, it is time to be a fisher of men. But how and whom? The devil knows in which guise I'll arrive in Petushki. All the way from Moscow, it was memoirs and philosophical essays. It was all poems and prose, as with Ivan Turgenev. Now the mystery novel begins. I took a look inside my suitcase. Is everything there? Everything was there. But where's the 100 grams? And whom do I accuse? I glanced to the right. The same pair is still there. The stupid one and the intelligent one. The stupid one in the quilt jacket has long since gotten tipsy and fallen asleep. The intelligent one in the worsted overcoat is sitting opposite him, trying to wake him up. He is going about it as if he were trying to skin the stupid one alive. He takes him by a button and jerks him as far as he can towards himself, as if drawing a bowstring, and then lets him go. And the stupid one flies back and buries himself into the back of the bench like Cupid's dull arrow into the heart. Transcendental, I thought. Has he been at it for a long time? No, these two couldn't have stolen it. One of them is wearing a quilt jacket, it's true, and the other one isn't sleeping, so in principle, either one of them could have. But then, one is sleeping, and the other one is wearing a worsted overcoat, so neither one could have stolen it. I glanced back. No, there is nothing there which would suggest. Indeed, two people do suggest something, but not these two. Very strange, this man and woman. They are sitting on different sides of the car at opposite windows, and obviously are not acquainted. But for all that, they look amazingly similar. He is wearing a jacket, and she is wearing a jacket. He has a brown beret and a black mustache. She has a brown beret and a black mustache. I rubbed my eyes and looked back once again. An amazing resemblance, and each was incessantly looking the other over, angrily. It's clear that they could not have stolen the 100 grams. And ahead? I looked ahead. Ahead, another strange pair, a grandfather and his grandson. The grandson is 2 heads taller than his grandfather and feeble-minded, probably from birth. The grandfather is 2 heads shorter, but is also feeble-minded. Both looked me straight in the eye and licked their lips. Suspicious, I thought. Why is it they're licking their lips? Everyone else is looking at me in the eye too, but no one else is licking his lips. Very suspicious. I started to look them over as intently as they were looking at me. No, the grandson is a complete cretin. Even his neck is abnormal. It doesn't grow into his torso, it grows out of it, rising towards the back of his head together with the collarbones. And he breathes idiotically. He first exhales, then he inhales. When with everyone else, it's the opposite. First inhaling, then exhaling. And he looks at me, his eyes gaping and his mouth screwed up. But the grandfather, he looked at me even more intensely, as if into the muzzle of a gun, and with such blue swollen eyes that from both these eyes moisture flowed, as if from 2 drowned men, straight onto his boots. And he was like a man condemned to be shot, with a deathly pallor on his bald head, and his whole physiognomy was pockmarked as if he had been shot point blank. In the middle of his shot face dangled a swollen bluish nose that swayed like a victim of hanging. Very suspicious, I thought once more, and rising from my place, I motioned with my finger for them to come here. They both jumped up at once and rushed towards me, licking their lips the while. This is also suspicious, I thought. It seems to me they jumped up even a little before I motioned to them. I invited them to sit opposite me. They both sat down, staring intensely at my suitcase. The grandson was seated in a strange way. We all sit on our rear ends, but this one was somehow rode onto his left rib, and seemingly to offer one leg to me and the other to his grandfather. What's your name, Gramp, and where are you heading to? Harpunova Yesina. I'm called Mitrich, and this is my grandson. He's also Mitrich. We're going to Orekhovo to the park to ride the carousels. And the grandson added, This sound was unusual and so devilishly offensive that I cannot reproduce it properly. He didn't speak, but rather squealed with his left nostril, and with great effort, as if he was raising the left nostril up with the right. How fast we're traveling to Petushki, the renowned Petushki. What a drunk of a grandma, what a good grandpa. So, you're going to ride the carousel? The carousel. Or maybe not the carousel after all? The carousel. Mitrich asserted once more in the very same doomed voice, and moisture went on flowing from his eyes. But tell me, Mitrich, what did you do in here while I was out in the vestibule, while I was sunk into my own thoughts out there, and my own thoughts about my own feeling for a beloved woman? Tell me. Mitrich, not budging, somehow started to fidget. No, nothing. I simply wanted to eat compot. Compot with white bread. Compot with white bread? Compot with white bread. Great. So I'm standing in the vestibule, all sunk in my thoughts about my feelings, and you meanwhile are searching my bench for compot with white bread, and not finding any compot. The grandfather broke down first and burst into tears. The grandson after him. His upper lip entirely disappeared while his lower one dangled down. Both cried. I understand you. Yes, I understand everything. If I feel like forgiving you, I've got a soul the size of a Trojan horse's belly. It'll hold a lot. I forgive everything if I feel like understanding. I understand you just wanted compot with white bread. But you didn't find one or the other on my bench, and you were simply impelled to drink whatever you found there in place of what you wanted. I crushed them with my evidence. They both covered their faces and rocked contrarily back and forth on the bench in time with my accusations. You remind me of an old man in Petushki. He drank only others people's stuff. He drank only stolen stuff. He'd lift a bottle of triple eau de cologne from the pharmacy, go into the toilet at the station, and drink it on the sly. He called this drinking Bruderschaft. He was seriously convinced that this was drinking Bruderschaft, and he died like that in his delusion. So what's up? Did you decide to drink Bruderschaft? They rocked back and forth and cried, and the grandson even started to blink with grief. But enough of tears. If I feel like an understanding, I'll take it all in. I've got a head for indulgence. If you'd like, I can offer you some more. Each of you has already had 50 grams. I can give you another 50. At that moment, someone came up from behind and said, I want to drink with you too. Everyone looked at him. It was the man with the black mustache, the jacket, and the brown beret. The young Mitrich started to squeal. What a guy, what a tricky guy. The man with the black mustache cut him off shortly with a look, and from beneath his mustache, I am not tricky in any way. I don't steal from strangers like some. I don't steal the essentials of life from stranger. I've got my own here. And he set a bottle of Stolichna on a bench. You won't refuse some of mine, he asked. I squeezed over to give him a place. No, but I'll have it later. Meanwhile, I'd like my own stuff. Aunt Clara's kiss. Aunt Clara's? Aunt Clara's. We poured ourselves each his own stuff. Granddad and grandson waited for theirs. It turns out they were ready for it before I beckoned to them. Granddad pulled out the empty quarter bottle. I recognized it at once. And grandson pulled out a whole pitcher. Pulled it out from somewhere between his pelvis and his diaphragm. I poured them out what I promised, and they smiled. Bruderschaft, boys? Bruderschaft. Everyone drank, throwing back their heads like pianists. This train does not stop at Yesina. Stops at all points except Yesina. Yesina Frezheva. A rustling and a smacking of lips started up, as if the pianist, who had been drinking everything, had now drunk it all up and had started to play Franz Liszt's Rhapsody in C-sharp minor. The first to speak was the man with the black mustache and the jacket, and for some reason he addressed himself only to me. I've read in Ivan Bunin that red-haired people, if they drink, always get red in the face. Well, what of it? What do you mean, what of it? The last words of Anton Chekhov, before he died, what were they? You remember he said, Ich sterbe, that is, I am dying, and later he added, pour me some champagne, and only then he died. So, and Friedrich Schiller, not only he couldn't die, he couldn't live without champagne. Do you know how he wrote? He'd put his feet in an icy bath, pour out the champagne, and write. He'd go through one glassful, and a whole act of a tragedy would be ready. He'd go through 5 glasses, and a whole tragedy in 5 acts would be ready. So. Well then, he cast ideas into me like the triumphant warrior tosses gold pieces, and I was barely able to pick them up. What about Nikolai Gogol? What about him? Whenever he was at Panaev's house, he would always ask that they put a special pink goblet on the table. And did he drink out of the pink goblet? Yes, he drank out of the pink goblet. And what did he drink? Who knows? Well, what can you drink from a pink goblet? Vodka, naturally. Both the Mitriches and I followed him with interest, while he, the man with the black mustache, just laughed in anticipation of new triumphs. And old Modest Musarsky, my God, do you know how he wrote his immortal opera Khovanshina? It's laughter and grief. Modest Musarsky lies dead drunk in a ditch, and Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov comes by, dressed in a smoking jacket and carrying a bamboo walking stick. Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov stops, tickles Modest with his walking stick, and says, "Get up, go wash yourself, and sit down and finish your divine opera Khovanshina." And so they sit there. Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov in an armchair, crossing one leg over the other, and with his top hat in his outstretched hand, while opposite him sits Modest Musarsky, all limp, unshaven, hunched over in a bench, sweating, writing down notes. Modest on the bench wants to tie one on. Who cares about notes? But Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov, with top hat in one hand outstretched, won't let him. But as soon as the door closes behind Rimsky-Korsakov, Modest gives up his immortal opera Khavanshina and its thump back into the ditch, and later he gets up and ties one again and again thump. Well read, devil, old Mitrich interrupted him enraptured. Yes, I really love to read. There are so many fine books in the world, the man in the jacket continued. For example, I drink for 1 month for another, and then I read some book or other, and how good it seems to me, this book, and so bad do I seem to myself that I get thoroughly upset that I can't read. Then I get it up and start drinking. I drink for 1 month, then another, and then... Wait a minute. Here it was I who interrupted him. Wait, what about the Social Democrats? What Social Democrats? Is it only the Social Democrats? All worthwhile people in Russia, all the necessary people, they all drink. They drink like pigs. But the superfluous, the muddle-headed ones, they didn't drink. Eugene Onegin, when he visited the Latins, the only thing he drank was bilberry juice, and that got him the trots. But Onegin's highest contemporaries, between the Lafitte and the Clicquot, were at that time giving birth to the mutinous science and Decembrism. And when they finally awakened Herzen... Hold it. Go ahead and wake him up, your Herzen. Someone on the right bellowed suddenly. We gave a start and turned to the right. It was the Cupid in the worsted overcoat. This Herzen, he was supposed to get off at Harpunova, but he's still riding the dog. Everyone who could laugh burst out laughing. Ah, leave him in peace, the devil fucking Decembrist. Nothing between the ears. What's the difference? Harpunov or Petushki? What if the old boy has taken it into his head to go to Petushki and you're throwing him off in Harpunova? Now everyone was getting imperceptibly tipsy, imperceptibly and joyously tipsy, imperceptibly and hideously, and me along with them. I turned to the man in the jacket and the black mustache. Let's suppose they awakened Alexander Herzen. Just what have Democrats and Khavanshina got to do with it? Here's what. The whole thing got started from that rotgut instead of Clicquot. Democratization got started. The uproar in the Khavanshinas. All of your Uspenskis, all your Pomilovskis, they couldn't write a line without a glass. I've read it, I know. They drank desperately. All the honest men of Russia. And why did they drink? They drank in desperation. They drank because they were honest, because they were not up to lightening the burden of the people. The people were suffocating in poverty and ignorance. Read Dmitry Pisarev. He writes the same thing. The people cannot permit themselves beef, but vodka is cheaper than beef, so the Russian peasants drink because of his poverty. They cannot permit themselves a book, because at the marketplace there is neither Gogol nor Belinsky, just vodka, both government vodka and the other kinds are from the barrel and to take home. Therefore he drinks, because of his ignorance he drinks. How is one not to give away to despair? How not to write about the peasant? How not to want to save him? How not to drink from despair? The Social Democrat writes books and drinks. He drinks as well as he writes. But the peasant doesn't read and drink. He drinks without reading. Then Ouspensky gets up and hangs himself, and Pavilovsky lies down under a bench in a tavern and breathes his last. And Garshin gets up and, dead drunk, throws himself out of the railing. The man in the black mustache had already gotten up and taken off his beret, and was gesticulating like a madman. Everything he had drunk was stirring him up and rushing to his head. Rushing, everything rushing. The Decembrist in the worsted overcoat, he gave up on his Erzen, sat down close to us, and turned his uplifted, dull, damp eyes to the orator. You must look at what's happening. The darkness of ignorance is ever thickening, and impoverishment is growing. Have you read Marx? Everyone is drinking more and more. The Social Democrats' despair grows proportionally, and now it's not Lafitte or Clicquot. They somehow succeeded in awakening Erzen. But now, all thinking Russia, grieving over the peasant, drinks and never wakes up. Ring all the bells of London. No one in Russia will raise his head. Everyone's lying in vomit, and life is hard for everyone. And so it is to this day, to this very day, the circle, this vicious cycle of existence. It has me by the balls. I've only got to read a good book, and I can't figure out who drinks for what reason. The dregs looking up or the bigwigs looking down. Then I can't go on. I drop the book. I drink for a month, for another. Then, stop. The Decembrist interrupted him. Is it really impossible not to drink? To take oneself in hand and not drink? Take the Privy Councillor Goethe, for example. He did not drink at all. Didn't drink? At all? The man with the black mustache stood up and put on his beret. That can't be. Oh, yes, it can. The man was able to take himself in hand and did not drink a single gram. You're speaking of Johann von Goethe? Yes, I'm speaking of Johann von Goethe, who did not drink a single gram. Strange. And what if Friedrich Schiller had served him something, a goblet of champagne? All the same, he wouldn't have taken it. He would have taken himself in hand and not taken it. He would have said, I don't drink a gram. The man with the black mustache was crestfallen, and he started to grieve. His entire system has collapsed in public view, the system he had constructed by an ardent and brilliant stretching of points. Help him, Yerofeev, I whispered to myself. Help the man. Any kind of blather, an allegory. So you say that Privy Councillor Goethe did not drink a gram? I turned to the Decembrist. And why didn't he drink, do you know? What caused him not to drink? All honest minds drink, but he did not. Why? Here, we are going to Petushki, and for some reason we stop everywhere except Yesina. Why not stop at Yesina too? But we don't. We barreled through it without a stop. And it's all because there wasn't any passengers in Yesina. They all got on either at Harpunova or Fryazevo, right? They walked all the way from Yesina itself as far as Harpunova or Fryazevo and got on there. Because all the same, the train is going to shoot through without a stop. So this is how Johann von Goethe acted, the old fool. Do you think he didn't want to drink? Of course he wanted to. But in order not to kick the bucket, he forced all his characters to drink instead. Take even his Faust. Who drinks in it? Everyone does. Faust drinks and gets younger. Zebo drinks and crawls all over Faust. Mephistopheles doesn't do anything but drink and treat the crowds and sing the song of the flea to them. You ask, why is this necessary for Privy Councillor Goethe? And why did he force Werther to put a bullet through his forehead? Because, and there is proof, he himself was on the verge of suicide, but in order to shake off the temptation, he forced Werther to do it instead. You understand? He remained alive, but it was as if he had committed suicide. And now was completely satisfied. This is even worse than regular suicide. In this, there is more cowardice and egoism. So that's how your Privy Councillor Goethe drank, the same way as he shot himself. Mephistopheles would take a drink and he'd be okay, the old cur. Faust would pour himself some more, and the old dork, he wouldn't be able to see straight. The old boy Nick worked with me on the road construction. He, too, didn't drink. He was afraid that he'd drink a little and he'd take off on a spree for a week or a month. But the rest of us, he all but forced us. He'd pour us something, grunt for us, get happy, the scum, and walk around as if he were in a stupor. The same goes for your vaunted Johann von Goethe. Schiller would serve him something, but he would refuse. And how? He was an alcoholic. He was an alky, your Privy Councillor Johann von Goethe, and his hands shook, as it were. So that's it. The Decembrist and the man with the black mustache looked me over. The Harmonia system was reestablished, and with it, gaiety. With a broad gesture, the Decembrist dragged a bottle of pepper vodka out of his worsted overcoat and placed it at the feet of the man with the black mustache. The man with the black mustache pulled out his stolichne. Everyone rubbed their hands agitatedly. They poured me more than anyone. They also gave old Mitrich something, and they gave a glassful to the young Mitrich, who clasped it happily to his left nipple with his right thigh, tears gushing from both nostrils. And so, to the health of Privy Councillor Johann von Goethe, Fryazevo kilometer 61. Yes, to the health of Privy Councillor Johann von Goethe. As soon as I had finished drinking, I felt that I was getting drunk beyond measure, and all the others too. But, permit me to ask one trifling question, the man with the black mustache said through his mustache and through the sandwich in his mustache. Again, he addressed only me. Permit me to ask, why is it you have so much sadness in your eyes? How can you be so sad when you have so much knowledge? You'd think you haven't drunk anything since morning. I was offended. What do you mean nothing? And is it really sadness? No, this is just bleariness. I'm a little high. No, this is bleariness from sadness. You're like Goethe. You refute with your whole appearance a premise of mine, a speculative premise, but one growing out of experience. Like Goethe, you refute everything. And how do I refute everything? With my bleariness. Precisely, with your blariness. Just listen to the point of my most cherished premise. When we drink in the evening and don't drink in the morning, what are we in the evening and what do we become in the next morning? For example, if I drink, I'm devilishly merry. I have a great mobility and I'm turbulent and I can't find a place for myself. But the next morning I'm not simply not merry. I'm not simply immobile. No, I am exactly as much gloomier than my normal self, my sober self, as I was merrier than my usual self the night before. If I was possessed by Eros the night before, then my morning revulsion to that is exactly equal to the dreams of the evening before. What do I want to say? Here, take a look. And the man with his black mustache depicted this silly theory. He explained that the horizontal line is the line of normal, sober condition, the everyday line. The highest point of the curve is the moment of falling asleep, the lowest moment, that of awakening with a hangover. You see, it is a pure mirror image. Stupid nature. She worries about nothing so zealously as she does about equilibrium. I don't know whether this worrying of hers is morally correct, but it is geometric. Look, this curve represents for us not only the vital spirit of life, it represents everything. In the evening, fearlessness, even if there is a reason to be afraid, we're fearless and underestimate all values, while in the morning we overestimate all values and start getting afraid completely without reason. If on an evening's drinking's nature has overpaid us, the next morning she shortchanges us with mathematical accuracy. If you have an urge for an ideal in the evening, let's say your hangover will bring you a rush of the anti-ideal, but if the ideal remains, then it will come forth with an anti-rush. There, in 2 words, is my sacred premise. It is universal and applicable to everyone, but with you it's not like with other people, it's like Goethe. I laughed. Why is it a premise then and not a postulate if it's universal? And the Decembrist also laughed. Be it universal, then how come it's a premise? Because it is. Because it does not take woman into account. It does take man as such into account, but not the ladies. With the appearance of a woman, all mirror images are disrupted. If women weren't women, then the premise would not be a premise. The premise is universal so long as there aren't any women. With women, the premise is no more. In particular, if a woman is bad and the premise is good. Everyone started talking at once. And what is a premise anyway? And what's a bad woman? There aren't any bad women, only a premise can be bad. For instance, the December said, I have 30 women and every one is as good as the next, though I don't have a mustache, while you, let's say, have a mustache and only one good one. Even so, I considered 30 of the worst women to be better than one, even the best kind. What's the mustache got to do with it? We were talking about women, not mustaches. About mustaches, too. If it weren't for mustaches, there wouldn't have been any talk. The devil knows what drive you're babbling. All the same, I think that one good one is worth all yours. How do you look at it? The man with the black mustache again turned to me. From the scientific point of view, how do you look at it? I said, from the scientific point of view, of course she is. In Petushki, for example, they give you 1 bottle of trappers for 30 empties, and if you bring in... What? 1 for 30? Why so many? The hubbub started again. Nobody else does it differently. 30 empties at 12 kopecks, that's $3.60. And trappers cost $2.62. Any child knows that. They still don't know how Pushkin died, but this they know. You don't take any change because there's a good woman behind the counter, and you've got to humor a good woman. Yeah, what's so good about her, this woman behind the counter? She's good in that a bad woman wouldn't have taken the bottles at all, but the good one takes bad bottles and gives you a good one, and therefore it is necessary to humor her. Come to think of it, what was woman placed on earth for? They all observed a significant silence. Each thought his own thoughts, or they all thought the same thing, for all I know. But how do you humor her? What did Maxim Gorky say on the island of Capri? The measure of any civilization is its way of relating to women. Me too. I go into the store in Petushki. I've got 30 empties with me. I say, dearie, in a voice which is so sad and so soused. I say, be so kind, give me a bottle of trappers. And really, I know that I'm giving away almost a ruble. 360 minus 262, it's a pity. But she looks at me. Should I give him the change, the scum, or not? And I look at her. Will she give me the change, the slut, or no? Rather, no. At this moment, I don't look at her. I look through her and beyond. And what arises before my meaningless gaze? Capri does, the island Capri, the agaves and the tamarinds, and underneath them sits Maxim Gorky, hairy feet sticking out of white pants. And he threatens me with his finger. Don't take the change, don't take the change. I wink at him. Suppose there won't be anything to put in my mouth. Well, okay, I'll get something to drink, but what will I eat? And he says, it's nothing, Venichka, you'll survive. And should you wish to eat, don't drink. So I go out without the change, and I'm angry, of course. I think, the measure of civilization. Maxim Gorky, you Maxim of a Gorky. You from stupidity or booze, you blathered like that on your island of Capri. You're okay over there. You'll gorge on your agaves, but what about me? They all laughed, and the grandsons go, what agaves, what a lovely island of Capri. And the bad woman, said the Decembrist. Doesn't it happen that the bad woman is really necessary too? Of course she is, I answered him. It happens that a bad woman sometimes is positively necessary to a good man. Take me, for example. 12 weeks ago, I was in a tomb. I had been in a tomb for 4 years already, so that I had already stopped stinking. And they said to her, "Look, he's in a tomb. Resurrect him if you can." And she walks up to the tomb. If only you had seen how she walks up to it. "We know," said the Decembrist. "Walks the same as you write, and you can't write worth shit." Right. She walked up to the tomb and she says, "Telifekumi," which means in the translation from ancient Jiddish, "I say to you, get up and walk." And what do you think? I got up and walked. And it's already 3 months that I've been walking around muddled as I am. Muddled from grief, the man with the black mustache and little beret repeated. And the grief is from women. "He's muddled because he's been hitting the bottle," the Decembrist interrupted him. "What's hitting the bottle got to do with it, and why did he hit the bottle?" "Because, let's suppose, a man grieves and goes to a woman. It's impossible to go to a woman and not drink. If you do, she's a bad one. Yes, even if she's a bad one, you've got to drink. In fact, the worse the woman, the more you've got to hit the bottle." "Honestly," the Decembrist cried, "how marvelous it is that we're all so intelligent. We're just like in Turgenev. Everyone sits around arguing about love. If you will, I'll tell you something about an exceptional love and about how necessary bad women can be. Like in Turgenev, let's everyone tell something. Let's like in Turgenev. Even old Mitrich, even he said, let's." Kilometer 61, kilometer 65. The Decembrist started to tell his story first. "I had a friend, I'll never forget him. He was always kind of obsessed, but once nothing else, but something like a demon possessed him. He went crazy over, you know what? Over Olga Erdely, the renowned Soviet harpist. It could just as well have been Vera Dulova, she's also a renowned harpist, but it was this Erdely he actually went crazy over. And not once in his life did he ever see her. He only heard her on the radio how he strummed the harp, and wouldn't you know, he went crazy over her. Went crazy and lay around. He didn't go to work. He didn't study, didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't get out of bed, didn't love girls, and didn't stick his head out of the window. 'I'll take my pleasure with Olga Erdely,' he'd say, 'and only then will I be resurrected. I'll get out of bed, I'll work, I'll study, I'll drink and smoke and stick my head out the window.' And we'd say to him, 'So why Erdely in particular? Take Vera Dulova, if you'd like, in place of Erdely. Vera Dulova plays beautifully.' But he'd say, 'Go, stuff your Vera Dulova. She's fit for a coffin, your Vera Dulova. I wouldn't sit next to your Vera Dulova to take a crap.' So, we see that the kid's going to boil away completely. About 3 days later, we got up to him. 'How's it going? Still raving about Olga Erdely? We've found some medicine for you. If you want, we'll drag in Vera Dulova with a harp string for you tomorrow.' 'Sure,' he says, 'if you want me to strangle her with a harp string, go ahead and drag her in. I'll strangle her.' So what could we do? The kid was simply dying away. We had to save him. I went off to see Olga Erdely, wanting to explain to her what was what, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I even wanted to see Vera Dulova, but no, I thought, he'll strangle her like a forget-me-not. I'm walking through Moscow in the evening, and I'm sad. They're sitting there on their harps, playing, getting fat, while there's nothing left of this kid but ruins and ashes. And here I meet this hag of a woman, not so very old, but drunk as they come. 'A ruble, give me a ruble,' she says, and it just dawned on me. I gave her a ruble and explained everything. And she, this crone, turned out to be quicker than Olga Erdely, and to make it all the more persuasive, I had her take a balalaika with her. And so, I dragged her off to my friend. We went in, he's lying down grieving as usual. I tossed him the balalaika right from the threshold, and then shoved this Olga in his face. I let him have it with this Olga. Here she is, Erdely. If you don't believe me, just ask. And in the morning I take a look, the window was open, he had stuck his head out of it, and he had started smoking a bit, then he started working a bit, studying, drinking, and he became a man like any other. So you see? Yeah, where's the love and where's Turgenev? We all started up, hardly giving him a chance to finish. No, go on about love. Have you read Ivan Turgenev? Well, if you have, tell us about it. Tell us about first love, about Zinочка the heroine, about the veil, and how they all go with a whip on your ugly face. So tell us about that. Of course, I added in Turgenev, it's a little bit different. In Turgenev, they've all got around the hearth in top hats, holding jabots in outstretched hands. Oh well, okay, even without the hearth, we've got something to warm up with. And what do we need with jabots? Even without the jabot, we can't see straight. Of course. If one is to love a la Turgenev, that means to be able to sacrifice everything for the sake of a chosen creature, to be able to do what is impossible to do while not loving a la Turgenev. Take your own body. We had started imperceptibly to get really friendly with each other. Take you, Decembrist. This friend you told us about, would you be able to bite off one of his fingers for the sake of a beloved woman? Why a finger? What's a finger got to do with it? The Decemberist groaned. No, listen. So could you, at night, creep into the party office, take off your pants, drink a whole bottle of ink, then put the bottle back, put on your pants, and quietly return home, for the sake of a beloved woman? Could you? My God, no, I couldn't. So there you are. I could. Grandad Mitrich spoke up suddenly. I could tell you a little something. You? What? You've probably never even read Ivan Turgenev. Well, so if I haven't, my grandson, he's read everything. Then we'll give your grandson the floor later. Go on, Grandpa. Tell us about love. I can imagine I thought what drivel this will be, what unmitigated drivel. And I suddenly remembered my boast on the day I met my tsaritsa. I'll put in even more rubbish next time, even more. So what? Let him talk, this Mitrich with the runny eyes. We must honor, I repeat, in the darkest reaches of another soul. We must look into them even if there's nothing there, even if there's only trash there. It's all one. Look and honor it. Look and don't spit on it. Grandad started to tell his story. Kilometer 65, Pavlov Posad. We had a chairman. He was called Lohen Green, really strict and all covered with boils. And he'd go out every night for a motorboat ride and steer out onto the river and squeeze his boils. Moisture flowed from Granddad's eyes. He was excited. He'd have his ride in the boat and come back to the administration office, lie down on the floor, and nobody could get near him. He wouldn't say a word. And if you said anything cross to him, he'd face the corner and start crying. He'd stand there crying and pee on the floor like a kid. Suddenly, Granddad felt silent. His lips became twisted, his blue nose flared up and went out. He cried like a woman, grabbing his head in his hands, his shoulders trembling and shaking in waves. Was that all, Mitrich? The car shuddered with laughter. Everyone laughed, an ugly laugh and a happy laugh, and the grandson even started tugging at himself from top to bottom so as to not to wet both ankles. The man with the black mustache got angry. So where's the Turgenev here? We've made a deal like in Turgenev, but here the devil knows what's going on. Someone covered in boils who pees, to boot. And he's probably retelling the motion picture, someone grumbled from the side. The motion picture, the chairman. And I sat there and understood old Mitrich, understood his tears. He was simply sorry for everything and everyone, sorry for the chairman because he had been given such a shameful nickname, and for the walls on which he urinated, and for the boat, and for the boils. Sorry for everything. First love or ultimate pity, what's the difference? God dying on the cross preached pity to us, and not scoffing did he teach. Pity and love for the world are one. Love and pity for every womb, and for the fruit of every womb. Go on, Gramp, I said to him. Go on. I'm treating you. You've earned it. You've did a good job on love. And all of you, let's drink. To the nobleman from Oriol, Ivan Turgenev, citizen of La Belle France. Let's drink to the nobleman from Oriol. Again, the same gurgle and the same sound, and then everyone, the rustling and the smackling of lips. An encore of the Rhapsody in C-sharp minor, composed by Franz Liszt. No one noticed right away that the door of our coupé, let's call it a coupé, there had appeared the figure of a woman with a black mustache and a black beret and a jacket. She was completely drunk, inside and out, and her beret has gotten askew. I also want to drink to Turgenev, she enunciated from her very guts. The confusion lasted no more than a couple of moments. A tantalizing morsel arrives during the meal, the Decembrist taunted her. Everybody laughed. What's to laugh at, Grandad said. Just another woman, nice and soft. Nice woman like that, the man in the black mustache reported sadly. Nice woman like that should be shipped off to the Crimea and fed to the wolves. But why, I protested and started fussing about. Let her sit down, let her tell something. You've read Turgenev, you read Maxim Gorky, but try and get any sense out of you. I sat her down and poured her out a glass of Aunt Clara's. She drank it, and in place of a thank you, she lifted up the beret from her head. Look here, do you see that? And she showed us a scar above her ear, and then was majestically silent, and then extended her glass towards me once more. Hit me again, young man, otherwise I'll faint. I poured her another half a glass. Pavlova Passat Nazareva. She drank that one too, rather mechanically, and having drunk it, she opened her mouth wide and showed everyone. Do you see? There are 4 teeth missing. So where are they, these teeth? Who knows where they are? I'm an educated woman, but I'm walking around without teeth. He knocked them out for me because of Pushkin. And when I heard how you're having such a literary conversation here, I thought, go on and join them. Have a drink, and at the same time tell how your head was broken and 4 of your front teeth knocked out because of Pushkin. So she set about telling her story. Everything started with Pushkin. They sent us a Komsomol organizer, Yevtushkin. He was always pinching me and reciting poetry. And once he catches hold of me by the calves and asks, "Has my wondrous gaze tormented thee?" I said, "What if it has?" But by the calves again, "Has my voice resounded in thy soul?" Then he grabs me in his arms and drags me off somewhere. And when he drags me out, again I go around for days, not myself, repeating over and over, Pushkin, Yevtushkin, tormented, resounded, resounded, tormented, Yevtushkin, Pushkin. And then again, Pushkin, Yevtushkin. Get on with it. Get on with the front teeth, the man with the black mustache cut her short. Right away with the teeth. You'll get your teeth. What's next? So from then on, everything went okay. A whole year and a half, I called down God's ire with him in the hayloft. And then this Pushkin spoils everything again. I'm just like Joan of Arc, not made for pasturing the cows and sowing wheat. She got up and got her butt on a horse and galloped into Orleans to seek adventures. Just like me. I get a little drunk and right away I go up to him. "And who's going to educate your kids for you? Pushkin, is it?" And he snarls, "And what kids we've got? There aren't any kids here. What's Pushkin got to do with it?" And then I'd answer, "When there are some kids, it'll be too late to remember Pushkin." And so every time, I'd only have to get a little drunk. "Who will educate the kids?" I'd say, "Pushkin, is it?" And he'd straight away go crazy. "Leave, Darya," he yells. "Leave. Stop chipping away at a man's soul." I hated him at those times. I hated him so much that I'd get a headache behind my eyes. And then, no matter, I'd love him again. Love him so much that at night I'd wake up from it. And then somehow I got stinking drunk. I'd fly up to him and yell, "Pushkin will educate your kids for you, huh? Pushkin!" As soon as he hears Pushkin, he turns all black and starts to shake. "Drink. Get drunk, but don't mention Pushkin. Don't mention kids. Drink everything. Drink my blood and don't tempt your Lord God." And at this time I was out on a sick leave, a brain concussion and twisted bowels, and it was fall then in the south. And I started yelling, "Leave me, murderer. Leave me for good. I'll get along. I'll sleep around for a month and throw myself under a train, and then I'll go into a convent and take the veil. You'll come and beg for forgiveness from me, and I'll come out, all in black, all enchanting, and I'll make a fig and I'll scratch your eyes out with it. Leave." And then I scream, "Do you at least love the soul in me, the soul?" And he snakes all over and turns black. "With my heart," he yells, "with my heart, yes. With my heart I love your soul. But no, I don't love your soul with my soul." And wild somehow, like in an opera, he bursts out laughing, and he grabbed me and broke my skull and left for Vladimir and Klezma. Why did he leave? To whom did he go? All Europe shared my doubts. But a month later he returned, and at that time I was in a drunken fog. As soon as I saw him, I fell down on the table, burst out laughing, and started rubbing my legs together. "Aha!" I started screaming. "You blew it in Vladimir and Klezma, but who will educate the kids?" And he doesn't say a word. He just comes over and knocks out my 4 front teeth and leaves for the Rostov-on-Don on Komsomol business. I'm ready to faint. Boy, hit me again. Light. We all died laughing. And where is now your Yevtushkin? Who knows where? He's either in Siberia or Central Asia. If he got to Rostov and still alive, that means he's somewhere in Central Asia. But if he didn't get to Rostov and died, that means he's in Siberia. You're right, I backed her up. He won't die in Central Asia. It's possible to live in Central Asia. I haven't been there myself, but this friend of mine, Tikhonov, has been. He says you go along and see a settlement, and they burn dried dung in the stoves, but there's nothing to drink, though there's plenty of victuals, yurts and mullah. That's what he took for nourishment almost for half a year, yurts and mullah. And it's not so bad. He came back all mellow with his eyes bulging. And in Siberia? No, you'll die. In general, nobody can live in Siberia. Only black people live in Siberia. Products are not transported there. There's nothing to drink, not to speak of a meal. Only once a year from Zhytomyr in Ukraine, embroidered towels are brought in and the blacks hang themselves with them. And what sort of blacks? The Decembrists, who had been on the point of dozing off, bestirred himself. What blacks are there in Siberia? Blacks who live in the United States, not in Siberia. You've been to Siberia, I suppose, but have you been to the States? I have been, and I didn't see any kinds of blacks there. No blacks? In the States? Yes, in the States, not one black. Everyone had succeeded in getting so numb, and everyone's head so foggy, that there was no room for any kind of perplexity. The woman with the complicated story and the scar and no teeth was quickly forgotten, and she forgot herself as well as all the others forgot themselves. Which means you've been to the States, the man with the black mustache mumbled. This is very, very extraordinary. There aren't any blacks there and never were any. That I'll accept. I believe you like a brother. But tell us, was there no freedom there either? And freedom thus remains a phantom on that continent of sorrow, as they write in our newspapers? Tell us. Yes, I responded, and freedom thus remains a phantom on that continent of sorrow. And the people thus have become so used to it that they almost don't notice. Just think, they don't have. I walked around and observed them closely. Not a single grimace or gesture or remark do they have anything like the awkwardness to which we have been accustomed. On every rotten face there is as much dignity expressed in a minute as would last us for our whole great 7-year plan. How come, I thought, and turned off Manhattan onto Fifth Avenue, and answered my own question. Because of their vile self-satisfaction, nothing else. But where do they get their self-satisfaction? I froze in the middle of the avenue in order to resolve this thought. In the world of propagandistic fictions and advertising vagaries, where do they get so much self-satisfaction? I was heading into Harlem and shrugged off my shoulders. Where? The playthings of monopolies' ideologies, the marionettes of the arms kings, where do they get such appetite? They gorge 5 times a day, and always with the same endless dignity. But can a man really have an appetite in the States? Yes, old Mitrich nodded his head. They eat okay there, but we almost don't eat at all. All our rice goes to China, all the sugar to Cuba, so what will we eat then? Nothing, Pops, nothing. You've already eaten yours. It's a sin to talk like that. If you get to the States, remember the main thing. Don't forget your homeland, and don't forget its goodness. Maxim Gorky didn't write only about the ladies, he wrote about the homeland too. You remember what he wrote? What do you mean? I remember. And everything he drunk could have been seen in his blue eyes. I remember. I went off farther and farther into the woods with my grandmother. You meant to say that's about the homeland, Mitrich. The man with the black mustache slurred angrily. That's about grandmother, not the homeland at all. And Mitrich started crying again. Nazarevo Dresna. And the man with the black mustache said, Here, you've seen a lot and traveled a lot. Tell us, where do they value the Russian more, on this or on the other side of the Pyrenees? I don't know about this side, but on the other they don't value him at all. For example, I was in Italy. There's no attention paid to the Russian. They only sing and draw there. One of them, let's say, he gets up and sings, and another sitting alongside draws the first one who's singing, and the third, sitting off to the side, sings about the one who's drawing, and they don't understand our grief. Ah, the Italians. Do they really understand anything? The man with the black mustache backed me up. Precisely. When I was in Italy on St. Mark's Day, I wanted to take a look at the boat races, and how sad they made me. My heart dissolved in tears, though my lips were silent. But the Italians didn't understand. They laughed and pointed their finger at me. Hey, look, Yerofeev is going around fucked up again. But really, was I so fucked up? My lips were simply silent. Actually, there was no reason for me to be in Italy. I only wanted to see 3 things, Vesuvius, Herculaneum, and Pompeii. But they said that Vesuvius disappeared a long time ago and sent me to Herculaneum. But in Herculaneum, they said, so what do you need Herculaneum, you idiot? It's better you go to Pompeii. I arrive in Pompeii, but they say to me, you've had it with Pompeii, be off to Herculaneum. With a wave of my hand, I set out for France. I go along and get up to the Maginot Line, and suddenly I decide to return and spend some time at Luigi Longo's. I'll rent a cot from him and read books and stop fiddling around. Better to rent a cot from Palmiro Togliatti, of course, but he died recently, you know? But in what ways is Luigi Longo worse? But I didn't return after all. I went instead across the Tyrol in the direction of the Sorbonne. I arrived at the Sorbonne and said, I want to study for my bachelor's. But they tell me, if you want to study for your bachelor's, buddy, you have to have something like an inherent phenomenon in you. So what kind of inherent phenomenon do you have in you? What could I say? I say, well, what kind of inherent phenomenon could I have? I'm just a kid, you know, from Siberia. They ask, from Siberia? Well, since you're from Siberia, could be something inherent about your psychology. So what's inherent about your psychology? I thought about it. After all, this isn't Podunsk, this is the Sorbonne. You've got to say something intelligent. I thought about it and said, the inherent phenomenon in me is my self-motivated logos. But the rector of the Sorbonne, while I was thinking of something intelligent, has sneaked around behind me and whack in the back of the head. You're a fool, Yerofeev, and no kind of logos. Get, he screams, get out of our Sorbonne, Yerofeev. Then, for the first time, I was sorry that I hadn't rented a cot from Luigi Lotto. What was left for me to do but to go to Paris? I arrive. I head for Notre Dame. I'm going along and I'm amazed. There's nothing but brothels on every side. Only the Eiffel's tower stands there, and General de Gaulle is up on it eating chestnuts and looking in all 4 directions through binoculars. But what's the sense of looking in all 4 directions if there's nothing but brothels? It's impossible to walk around a boulevard there. Everyone is scurrying from brothel to clinic, from clinic back to brothel, and there's so much gonorrhea around that it's difficult to walk on the Champs-Élysées. There's so much gonorrhea around I can hardly move my feet. I see a couple of acquaintances, he and she. They're both chewing on chestnuts and both old. Where did I see them? In the newspapers? I don't remember. Presently, I recognized them. That was Louis Aragon and Elsa Triole. It's interesting. The thought slips through my head, from clinic to brothel or from brothel to clinic. And I cut myself off. You should be ashamed. You're in Paris, not Podkunsk. Ask them questions of social significance, the most agonizing social questions. I catch up to Louis Aragon and open my heart and say that I despair of everything, that I have no doubts about anything, that I am dying from internal contradictions and much more than that vain. But he only looked at me, saluted like an old veteran, took his Elsa by the arm and walked off. I catch up again, and this time I talk not to Louis, but to Triole. I say that I'm dying from a lack of impressions, and that I'm overcome by doubts just when I stop despairing, while in moments of despair I don't know any doubts. But like an old horse, she patted me on the cheek, took her Aragon by the arm, and walked off. Later, of course, I learned from the papers that they weren't Louis and Elsa at all. It turns out that they were Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. But what's the difference to me now? I went around Notre Dame and rented a mansard room there. Mansard, mezzanine, wing, entresol, and attic. I'm always getting them mixed up and don't see any difference. Briefly, I rented that in which it is possible to lie down, to write, and to smoke a pipe. I smoked up to 12 pipes and sent off to the Revue de Paris my essay on the questions of love. And you know yourselves how hard it is to write about love in France, because in France, everything concerned with love has long since been written. There, everybody knows everything, while we don't know anything about love. Show our citizen with an average education a crab louse, and ask him if it's an ordinary one or a crab louse, and he'll blurt out an ordinary one, of course. But show him an ordinary one, and he loses his head entirely. But in France, no. There, they may not know how much a bottle of trappers costs, but if it's an ordinary louse, then it'll be ordinary to everyone, and nobody will ever call it a crab. In other words, the Revue de Paris returned my essay with the excuse that it was written in Russian, that only the title was in French. Do you think that I fell into despair? I smoked 13 more pipes in my entresol and created a new essay, also dedicated to love. This time it was written in French from beginning to end, only the title was Russian, and after Ilyich at that, bitchiness as the highest and final stage of whoredom, and sent it off to the Revue de Paris. And they returned it to you again? The man with the black mustache asked, to indicate that he was participating in the conversation, but as if in his sleep. It goes without saying they returned it. They recognized my language as brilliant, but the basic idea as false. It may be applicable to Russian conditions, they said, but not to the French. Bitchiness here, they said, is not yet the highest stage, and certainly not the ultimate one. With the Russians, your whoredom, having reached the limit of bitchiness, will be forcibly abolished and replaced by onanism in an obligatory program. With us, the French, although not excluded in the future, there is an inculcation, in a more voluntary program, of certain elements of Russian onanism in a native Sodom, to which our bitchiness, through incest, is being transformed. But this inculcation will proceed in the course of traditional whoredom, and in quite a permanent condition. Briefly, they crapped on my brains completely. So then, I spat on it, burned my manuscripts together with the mansard and the entresol, and took off for the English Channel through Verdun, along towards the Albion. I went along thinking, all the same, why didn't I stay in Luigi Longo's apartment? I walked across and sang, the Queen of England is seriously ill. If she lives till tomorrow, she'll be here still. But in the outskirts of London? Permit me, the man with the black mustache interrupted. Your boldness astounds me. No, I believe you like a brother. The ease with which you overcame all national boundaries astonishes me. Dresna, kilometer 85. So what's so astonishing about it? And what boundaries, anyway? A boundary is necessary in order to not get nations confused. With us, for example, a border guard stands there and he knows absolutely that the boundary isn't a fiction or an emblem, because on one side of it people speak Russian and drink more, and on the other side they speak non-Russian and drink less. But over there, what kind of boundaries could exist if they all drink and speak non-Russian in the same way? Over there, they might like to set up a border guard, but there's no place to set him. So over there, the border guards hang around without anything to do, grieving and bumming cigarettes. In this sense, things are completely free. If you want to, for example, stay in Eboli, please stay in Eboli. If you want to go to Canossa, nobody will interfere with you, go to Canossa. If you want to cross the Rubicon, go ahead. So there's nothing astounding about it. At 12:00 Greenwich time, I had been already introduced to the director of the British Museum, whose euphonymous and idiotic name was something like Sir Silage Corn. "What do you want from us?" the director of the British Museum asked. "I want to become engagé here. More likely, I want you to engagé me. That's what I want." "You want me to engagé you in those pants?" said the director of the British Museum. "What about these pants?" I asked him with concealed vexation. And he, as if he hadn't heard, got in front of me on all fours and started smelling my socks. Having smelled them, he got up, frowned, spat, and then asked, "In those socks you want me to engagé you?" "What about these socks?" I started to say, not concealing my vexation anymore. "What about them? Take these socks I dragged around in my homeland. They really smelled, yes. But before departure I changed them, because everything in man ought to be beautiful. His soul, his thoughts, and his..." But he didn't even want to listen. Went into the chamber of lords and said to them, "Lords, I've got a bum here behind the door. He's from snow-covered Russia, but it would seem not terribly drunk. What am I to do with this miserable wench? Engagé him, the scarecrow, or not give the straw man any engagement at all?" And the lords looked me over through their monocles and said, "Give it a try, see, give it a try. Put him up for review, this dusty bastard would fit into any interior." Here the Queen of England took the floor. She raised her hand and cried, "Watch for it, ticket control!" The cry rang out, exploding through the length of the train. "Ticket control!" My story was interrupted in the most interesting of places. But not only was my story interrupted, the drunken half-daze that the man with the black mustache was in, the December sleep, everything was interrupted in midstream. Old Mitrich came to, all in tears. Only the woman of the complicated story, who had covered her missing teeth with her beret, slept like a Fata Morgana. Strictly speaking, on the Petushki branch line, nobody was afraid of ticket inspectors, since no one ever had a ticket. If some crazy boozer or other broke the rule and bought a ticket, he would of course feel uncomfortable when the inspectors appeared. He would stare down at his feet as if he wanted to sink into the ground. And the inspector would look at the ticket squeamishly and give the man a withering glance as if he were some sort of garbage. While the people would look with big, beautiful eyes at this character as if to say, "Look at the ground, you shit-ass, your conscience has gotten to the better of you." And they'd look down the inspector in the eye with even more determination. "Take a look at us. Can you judge us? Come over here, Semyonich. We won't offend you." Before Semyonich had become the chief inspector, things were very different. In those days, riders without tickets were chased onto the reservation like Indians, flogged over the head with the Academy Dictionary, and then fined and kicked off the train. In those days, people would race through the cars in droves to dodge an inspector, dragging along even those with tickets. Once 2 small boys were caught in the general panic, ran off with the herd, and were crushed to death before my eyes. They lay, as they fell between cars, their little hands turning blue, still clutched their tickets. Chief Inspector Semyonich changed all that. He canceled all the fines and the drives into the reservation. He made things simpler. He accepted 1 gram of vodka per kilometer from anyone without a ticket. All over Russia, drivers take a kopeck per kilometer from hitchhikers, but Semyonich was 1.5 times cheaper, 1 gram per kilometer. If, for instance, you're going from Chukhlinki to Usad, a distance of 90 kilometers, you pour out 90 grams for Semyonich, and off you go, sprawled on your bench like a fat cat. Thus, Semyonich's innovation strengthened the bond between inspector and the broad masses. He made this bond cheaper, simpler, and more humane. And now, the cry ticket control, there's no fear, only anticipation. Semyonich came into the car smiling carnivorously. He was already hardly able to stand up. Usually, he rode only to Orekhovo-Zuyeva, where he would jump off and go into his office, having collected enough to get puking drunk. "Is that you, Mitrich, going to Orekhovo with your grandson to ride the carousel? That'll be 180 for the 2 of you. Is that you, Black Mustache? Saltykovskaya to Orekhovo-Zuyeva, 72 grams. Wake up that whore and ask how much is due from her. And you, worsted coat, from where and where? Hammer and sickle to Pakrov, 105. Be so kind. It's getting so that you can't find anyone with a ticket anymore. Once this called for public anger and outrage, but now it's just justified in pride. And you, Venya?" And Semyonich bathed me with a bloodthirsty whiff of his alcoholic breath. "And you, Venya, Moscow-Petushki to the end of the line as usual?" Kilometer 85, Orekhovo-Zuyeva. "Yes, as usual. And it's for good this time, Moscow-Petushki. And you think you'll warm out your way out of this time against Scheherazade, right?" Here I must explain a small digression, and while Semyonich is drinking the dosage that he's collected in fines, explain to you quickly why Scheherazade and what he means by worm your way out of it. 3 years have passed since I first bumped into Semyonich. Then he had only just started to work as an inspector. He came up to me and said, "Moscow-Petushki, 125. And when I didn't understand what that was, he explained it to me. And when I said that I didn't have a drop with me, his answer to that was, "Do I have to kick your ass around for if you haven't had any?" I answered him that it wouldn't be necessary and muttered something from the area of Roman law. He became terribly interested and asked me to tell him in detail about everything ancient and Roman. I started to talk and got to the scandalous tale of Lucretia and Tarquinius, but at this point he had to jump off at Orekhova-Zuyeva, so he didn't get a chance to find out what happened finally to Lucretia. Did that good for nothing Tarquinius attain his end or not? Now, Simeonich was an extraordinary ladies' man and a utopian. The history of the world interested him only for its intimate moments. So when he looked in again a week later near Frязево, Simeonich didn't have to say to me, "Moscow-Petushki 125. No, he flung himself on me for the continuation. Well, did he fuck his Lucretia or not? And I told him what happened next. I went from Roman to Christian history and came to the story of Hypatia. And so, at the instigation of the patriarch Cyril, the monks of Alexandria, seized by fanaticism, tore the clothing from the beautiful Hypatia, and... But here our train came to a dead stop at Orekhova-Zuyeva, and Simeonich had to leap out into the platform, hopelessly intrigued. And in this way 3 years passed, every week. On the Moscow-Petushki line, I was the only unticketed passenger who had never bought Simeonich a single gram of vodka, and nevertheless remained unabused and among the living. But every story has an end, and even the story of the world. The next Friday, I got up to Indira Gandhi, Moshe Dayan, and Dubček. There was no place left to go. And so Simeonich drank the fines he had levied, grunted, and looked at me like a boa constrictor. Moscow-Petushki, 125. Simeonich, I responded almost begging. Simeonich, haven't you drunk quite a lot already? A decent amount, he answered, not without self-satisfaction. He was really foggy. Then that means that you've got an imagination. That means you're ready to race into the future. That means you can come with me out of the dark world of the past into the golden age, which verily, verily shall be. I can, Vanya. Today I can do anything. From the Third Reich, the Fifth Republic, from Slaughterhouse 5, the Seventh Congress, can you leap with me into the promised land of the Fifth Kingdom, the Seventh Heaven, and the Second Coming? I can, Simeonich roared. Speak, Scheherazade, speak. Then listen. The day will come, that day of days, on that day when the most wary Simon shall finally say, "Now absolve thy servant, Lord." And the archangel Gabriel shall say, "Hail Mary, blessed art thou amongst women." And Dr. Faust shall pronounce, "The moment is now, linger and stop a bit." And all whose names are written in the book of life shall sing out, "Exalt Isaiah," and Diogenes will extinguish his lantern. There shall be good and beauty, and everything will be fine, and all will be good and other than good, and beauty there will be nothing, and all shall merge into a kiss. Merge into a kiss? Simeonich was fidgeting impatiently. Yes, and the torturer and victim shall merge into a kiss, and spite, and design and calculation shall disappear from the heart. And the woman? The woman? Simeonich started to quiver. What? What about the woman? And the woman of the Middle East shall throw off her veil. The oppressed woman of the Middle East shall throw off her veil once and for all. And the lamb shall lie down. Lie down? Here he started to twitch all over. Yes, and the lamb shall lie down with the wolf, and not one tear shall be shed, and every cavalier shall choose a lady, whoever pleases him, and... Simeonich groaned. Will she? Will it be soon? And suddenly he started to wave his hands like a gypsy dancer, and then to fumble busily about with his clothing, stripping off his uniform down to his most intimate parts. Although drunk, I glanced at him in amazement, while the sober citizens around him just leapt from their seats, and in dozens of eyes was written a huge aha. The people have interpreted the matter quite differently than they ought to have interpreted it. I should tell you that homosexuality in our country had been overcome once and for all, but not entirely. Or entirely but not completely. Or else entirely and completely but not once and for all. What do people think about now? Nothing but homosexuality. That in the Middle East. Israel, the Golan Heights, Moshe Dayan. So if they chase Moshe Dayan off the Golan Heights and the Arabs make peace with the Jews, what will remain in the people's heads? Nothing but homosexuality, pure and simple. Let's say they're watching television. General de Gaulle and Georges Pompidou meet at a diplomatic function. Naturally, they both smile and shake each other's hands, and the audience goes, aha! They say, go on, General de Gaulle, or go, aha, go on, Georges Pompidou. Just like they were looking at us now. Everyone had aha written in his round eyes. Semyonich, I grabbed him under the arms and started to drag him towards the vestibule. People are looking at us. Come to your senses. Let's go. He was terribly heavy. He had gotten all soft and unsteady. I barely got him to the end of the car and popped him against the automatic doors. Venya, tell me, the woman of the Middle East, if she takes off her veil, will she have anything else on? Does she have anything under the veil? I have no time to answer. The train stopped, as if transfixed, at the station in Orechova-Zuyeva, and the door opened automatically. Orechova-Zuyeva. Senior Inspector Semyonich, intrigued for 1001st time, half alive and unbuttoned, was propelled out onto the platform, bumping his head on the railing. He then collapsed under the feet of the people getting off the train, and all of the fines he had collected spewed out of his gullet and flowed away onto the platform. I saw all of this with complete clarity and reported it to the world. But all the rest I didn't see and cannot report on. At the very edge of my consciousness, I was aware that the human avalanche which was getting off at Orechova overwhelmed me and sucked at me so as to gather me into itself like a nasty wad to be spit out on the Orechova platform, but without quite slipping because the people getting on the train plugged up the mouth of the ones getting off. And if God should ask me, really, Vanya, you don't remember anything else? Really, did you immediately sink into that sleep with which all of your calamities began? I'll say to him, no, Lord, not immediately. At the very same edge of consciousness, I was also aware that I was able, finally, to get the better of the elements and to break through into the empty spaces of the train and to fall onto somebody's bench, the one next to the door. And when I had fallen onto the bench, Lord, I immediately gave myself over to the potent flow of dreams and lazy somnolence. Oh no, I'm lying again. I'm again lying to thy face, Lord. It is not who I lie, it is my weakened memory. I did not immediately give myself over to the flow. I groped in my pocket for the still sealed bottle of Kubanskoye and took 5 or 6 sips, and only then, shipping the oars, I did myself over to the potent flow of dreams and lazy somnolence. All of your fancies about the golden age, I repeated over and over, are lies and dejection. But me, 12 weeks ago, I saw its prototype, and half an hour from now its reflection will flash in my eyes for the 13th time. There the birds never cease singing, neither by day or by night. There neither winter nor summer does the jasmine cease blooming. But what's that in the jasmine? Who is it there, arrayed in purple and linen, with the downcast eyes, smelling like lilies? And I smile like an idiot and pull aside the branches of jasmine. Orechova-Zuyeva Krutoye. And a sleepy Tikhonov emerges from the branches of jasmine, squinting into the sun. What are you doing there, Tikhonov? I'm finishing work on the theses. Everything has long been ready except for the theses, and now here the theses are ready too. Does this mean that you consider that the time is ripe? Who knows? The moment I have a little something to drink, it seems to me that it is, but the minute I start coming down, no, I think it's not yet ripe, and it's still too soon to take up arms. Better drink some Hollands, Vadya. Tikhonov drank some Hollands, grunted, and fell to grieving. Well, what, is the time ripe? Wait a minute, is getting there. When do we act? Tomorrow? Who knows? The moment I have a little something to drink, it seems to me that even today, that even yesterday, wasn't too early to act, but the minute I start coming down, no, I think that yesterday was too early, and that the day after tomorrow won't be too late. Better drink some more Hollands, Vadimchik. Drink some more Hollands. Vadimchik took a drink and fell again to grieving. Well, what? Do you think it's time? It is. Don't forget the password. And tell everyone not to forget, tomorrow morning, halfway between the villages of Garina and Yeliseikova, by the cattle yard, at 9:00 Greenwich. Right, 9:00 Greenwich. Goodbye, comrade. Try to get some sleep on this night. I'll try to get some sleep. Goodbye, comrade. Here I must qualify. In the face of the conscience of the whole of mankind, I should say that from the very beginning I opposed this adventure, fruitless as a fig tree. Well said, fruitless as a fig tree. From the very first, I said that revolution achieves something essential when it occurs in the heart and not in the town square. But once they began without me, I could not remain aloof from those who began it. I would be able, in any case, to avert unnecessary bitterness of heart and to lessen the amount of bloodshed. Before 9 Greenwich, in the grass next to the cattle yard, we sat and waited. To everyone who came up, we said, "Sit down with us, take a loaf off your feet, comrade." And they all remained standing, clanked their weapons, and repeated the agreed-upon phrase from Pushkin's Eugene Onegin, "I love the ladies' dainty feet." This password was playful and ambiguous, but we weren't up to that. 9:00 Greenwich was approaching. With what did it all begin? It all began with Tikhonov nailing his 14 theses to the gates of the Yeliseikovo Agro-Soviet. Rather, he didn't nail them to the gate, but wrote them out on the fence with chalk, and they were more like words and not theses, clear and lapidary words, and there were only 2 of them and not 14, but be that as it may, it all began with that. We moved out in 2 columns with our standards in our hands. One column marched on Yeliseikovo, the other on Tartina, and we marched without any opposition till sunset. No one was killed on any side, and no one was wounded either. Only one prisoner was taken. The elderly ex-chairman of the Larionovo Agro-Soviet, removed from his post for drunkenness and cognial imbecility. Yeliseikovo was subdued. Cherkasova lay prostrate at our feet. Negudova and Peshka begged for mercy. All of the population centers of the Petushki district, from the store at Paloshny to the Andreeva village storehouse, all were occupied by the forces of the rebellion. And after sunset, the village of Cherkasova was proclaimed the capital. The prisoner was brought there, and there too a congress of the victors was improvised. Everyone who delivered a speech was stinking drunk. They all grounded on about the same thing. Maximilian Robespierre, Oliver Cromwell, Sonia Perovskaya, Vera Zasulich, punitive detachments from Petushki, war with Norway, and again Sonia Perovskaya, Vera Zasulich. Some listeners cried, and Norway, where is that anyway? Who knows anyhow, where is it? Others answered to them, halfway to hell and back, wherever it is. I tried to calm them down. We won't get anywhere without intervention. In order to restore the economy destroyed by war, we must first destroy it, and for that you need at least a civil war, at least some kind of war. You need a minimum of 12 fronts. White Polish forces are needed, Tikhonov cried, staggering drunk. Oh, idiot, I interrupted him. You're always running off at the mouth. You're a brilliant theoretician, Vadim. We have nailed your thesis to our hearts, but as soon as the time comes, you're pure shit. You fool. What do we need with the white Polish forces? So am I arguing? Tikhonov started to giving in. And if they're more necessary to me than to you, Norway's okay with me. In the heat of the moment, everyone somehow had forgotten that Norway had been a member of NATO for 20 years, and Vladik T's Sky was already running to the Larionov's post office with a package of cards and letters. One letter was addressed, return receipt to Olav, King of Norway, declaring war. Another letter, rather not even a letter, but a blank piece of paper sealed in an envelope, was sent off to General Franco. Let him see an accusatory finger in that old dolt. Let him turn pale as the piece of paper, the fucking caudillo. From the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Harold Wilson, we demanded very little. Get your gunboat out of the Gulf of Aqaba, Prime Minister, then do as you wish. And finally, in a 4th letter to Władysław Gomułka, we wrote, you, Władysław, have full and inalienable rights to the Polish corridor, while Józef Cyrankiewicz hasn't had the slightest claim to the Polish corridor. And we sent 4 postcards to Abba Evan, Moshe Dayan, General Suharto, and Alexander Dubček. All 4 postcards were quite lovely, with little scenes and acorn designs, so let the boys enjoy them. The loads, maybe they'll recognize us as subjects of international law. No one slept that night. Everyone was seized by enthusiasm, and everyone gazed at the sky, waiting for Norwegian bombs, the opening of the stores, and intervention. And everyone imagined how happy Władysław Gomułka would be, and how Józef Cyrankiewicz would tear his hair. The prisoner didn't sleep either. The ex-chairman of the Agro-Soviet howled from his shed like a grieving hound. Boys, does this mean that tomorrow morning no one will bring me anything to drink? Hey, what do you want? Give things that at least will feed you in accordance with the Geneva Convention. What's that anyway? You'll see what it is. That is, you'll still be able to drag your feet about, Ivanich, but you won't be much sniffing around the ladies. Krutoye Voynova. And a plenum was in season from dawn until the time the liquor stores opened up. It was all broad-based and revolutionary spirited, but since all 4 of our plenums were broad-based and revolutionary spirited, we decided in order not to get them mixed up, to number them, 1st plenum, 2nd plenum, 3rd plenum, and 4th plenum. The entire 1st plenum was devoted to electing a president, i.e. to electing me as president. This took us some 2 minutes, no more. So all the rest of the time was eaten up by debate of a purely speculative theme. Who'll open up the store earlier, Auntie Masha and Andreeva or Auntie Shura and Palomi? Sitting on my presidium, I listened to the debate and thought, debate is absolutely necessary, but decrees are much more necessary. Why are we forgetting that which should be the crowning labor of any revolution, the issuing of decrees? For example, a decree obligating Auntie Shura and Palomni to open her store at 6 in the morning. Nothing could be simpler. Invested with the power, we undertake to force Auntie Shura to open her store at 6 in the morning instead of 9:30. Why didn't this occur to me before? Or, for example, a decree concerning land, transferring to the people all the land in the district, all acreage, and all movable property, along with all alcoholic beverages and without any requital. or this, resetting the hands of the clock 2 hours forward, or an hour and a half back, or anyway whatever. Then demanding that the word devil be spelled with a capital D, or canceling some letter altogether. It's just a question of which one. And finally, forcing Auntie Masha Andreeva to open her store at 5:30 instead of 9. Thoughts crowded in my head, so much that I started to feel sad and called Tikhonov off behind the scenes, where we drank some caraway vodka. And I said, "Listen, counselor." "Well, what?" "Oh, nothing. You're just a shitty counselor, that's what." "Find another," when Tikhonov was offended. "That's not the point, Vadya. The point is this. If you're a decent counselor, sit down and write decrees. Have another little drink, sit down and write. I heard that you have not restrained yourself after all, that you pinched Anatoly Ivanovich's thigh. What are you up to? Do you want to start a terror campaign?" "Oh, well, just a little." "And what sort of terror are you undertaking? White terror?" "Yes." "It is in vain, Vadya. However, okay, right now it's not the time. It is necessary to write a decree first, if only one stinking decree. You have paper and pen? Sit down and write, and then we'll have a drink and go on to a declaration of human rights. And only then comes the terror. And then later we'll have a drink, and as Ilyich put it, study, study, study." Tikhonov wrote 2 words, had a drink inside. "Yes," I muffed it out in my terror. "Well, really, in our affair it's impossible not to make mistakes, because our affair is unheard of and new, and consider that there are no precedents. There were precedents, it's true, but, what kind of precedents are they? They're nothing, nonsense, the flight of the bumblebee and the amusement of spoiled grown-ups, not any kind of precedents. The calendar, what do you think? Should we replace it or leave it as it is?" "Oh, better leave it. As they say, don't poke around in shit or you'll start smelling." "You put it correctly, we'll leave it as is. In you I have a brilliant theoretician, Vadya, and that's good. Should we close the plenum or not? Auntie Shura in Palomny is already open. She has some rossiskaya, they say." "Close it, of course. Anyway, tomorrow morning the second plenum will take place. Let's go to Palomny." Auntie Shura in Palomny really did have some rossiskaya. In connection with this, as well as in expectation of punitive raids from the regional center, it was decided to move the capital temporarily from Cherkasova to Palomny, that is, 12 miles deeper into the territory of the Republic. And there, on the next morning, the second plenum devoted to the issue of my resignation from presidency was declared open. "I am getting up from the president's chair," I said. "I spit in the president's chair. I feel that the president's chair should be occupied by someone who looks so shot from drink that you couldn't touch his face with a 3-day beating. Do we actually have anyone like that?" "We don't," the delegates answered in unison. "Take me, for example. Couldn't you touch mine with a 3-day beating?" Everyone looked at me at a couple of seconds and then answered in unison, "We could." "So there you are," I continued. "We'll get along without a president. We'd better do this. Let everybody go into the meadows and make some homebrew and lock Borya up. Since he's a person of high moral qualities, let him sit there and set up the office." My speech was interrupted by an ovation and the plenum was closed down. The neighboring meadows lit up with the blue fire of the stills. I alone did not share the general animation and optimism. I moved from fire to fire with a single alarming thought. Why wasn't anyone in the world willing to have anything to do with us? Why such silence in the world? The district is in flames, and the world is silent because it is holding its breath. Perhaps, but why has no one extended his hand? Not from the east nor from the west. What's become of King Olaf? Why don't regular units crush us from the south? Quietly, I led the counselor to the side. He reeked of homebrew. "Do you like our revolution, Vadya?" "Yes," Vadya answered. "It is feverish, but it is beautiful." "So, but about Norway, Vadya, about Norway, what's new?" "Nothing so far. But what do you care about Norway?" "What do you mean, what do I care? Are we in a state of war with Norway, or are we not in a state? Everything is turning out pretty stupid. We're fighting with her, but she doesn't want to with us. If they don't start bombing us by tomorrow, I'll sit down again in the president's chair, and then you'll see what'll happen." "Sit," Vadya answered. "Who's stopping you? Yerofeevkins. If you want to, go ahead." Voinovo Sad. Not a single bomb fell on us in the morning. In the opening of the third plenum, I said, "Senators, I see that no one in the world wants to undertake either being friends or to quarrel with us. All have turned away from us, and all have held their breath. And since tomorrow, punitive detachments from Petushki will arrive here towards evening, and Auntie Shura will be out of Rossiyskaya tomorrow morning, I am taking full power into my hands, and I am imposing a curfew. And if that's not enough, I declare the powers of the presidency absolute, and at the same time take up the presidency. That is, become the personality above the law and the prophets." No one objected. Only Prime Minister Borya S. winced at the word prophets, looking at me wildly and started to tremble for vengeance. 2 days later, he expired in the arms of the Minister of Defense. He died from grief and from an extreme proclivity for generalization. There didn't seem to be any other causes, but as to opening him up, we didn't, because to open him up would have been disgusting. And towards evening of the same day, all of the world's teletypes received a communication. Death was a result of natural causes. It wasn't said whose death, but the world surmised. The fourth plenum was a memorial meeting. I gave a speech. Delegates, if I should ever have any children, I'll hang on their wall a portrait of the Procurator of Judea, Pontius Pilate, so that they will grow up neat and clean. Procurator Pontius Pilate standing there, washing his hands. That's the right kind of portrait. Such am I also. I stand here and wash my hands. I joined you simply because I was dead drunk. I told you that it is necessary to revolutionize the heart, that it is necessary to raise souls to the mastery of eternal moral categories, and that everything else that you have undertaken, all of that is vanity and chasing of the wind. And think, what can we count on? Nobody is going to let us into the common market. The ships of America's 7th Fleet will never make it here, and really they won't want to. At this point, they were roaring from their places. Don't you despair, Vanya. Don't pee in your pants. Don't give us bombardiers. Don't give us B-52s. Oh, sure, hold out your hands. It's indeed funny to listen to you senators. They'll go as phantoms, too. Ha ha, who said that? Phantoms. One more word about phantoms and I'll die laughing. Here Tikhonov said from his place. Maybe they won't give us phantoms, but they'll give us a devaluation of the franc for sure. You're an idiot, Tikhonov, as I see it. I won't argue that you're a valuable theoretician, but every time you open your yap, and besides, that's not the point. Why is the whole Petushki region engulfed in flames? About no one. No one takes note of it, not even in the Petushki region. To put it bluntly, I shrug my shoulders and leave my post of president. Like Pontius Pilate, I'll wash my hands, and before your eyes drink up all the rest of the Rossiyskaya. Yes, I trample on my authority. I leave you for Petushki. You can imagine what a storm was raised among the delegates, especially when I started to drink up the rest. And when I started to leave, when I left, you can imagine the words that flew after me. You could also imagine that I will not be repeating those words to you. There was no repentance in my heart. I went through meadowland and pastures, through sweet-brier thickets and herds of cattle. The grain bowed before me and cornflowers smiled. But I repeat, there was no repentance in my heart. The sun had set, but I went on. Heavenly Queen, how far is it to Petushki? I said to myself. I walk here and walk, and it is nowhere. It is really dark out. Where is Petushki? Where is Petushki anyhow? I asked, going up to someone's lighted veranda. Maybe it wasn't a veranda at all, but a terrace, a mezzanine, or a wing. I don't really understand the difference and forever get them mixed up. I knocked and asked, where is Petushki anyhow? Is it still far to Petushki? And in response, everyone on the veranda burst out laughing and didn't say anything. I got offended and knocked again. The neighing on the veranda started up again. Strange. If that wasn't enough, someone was neighing behind my back. I looked around. The passengers on the Moscow-Petushki train were sitting in their places with filthy smiles on their faces. What's this? So I'm still on the train? It's nothing, Yerofeev, nothing. Let them laugh. Don't pay any attention. As Saadi said, be straight and simple as a cypress and generous as a palm. I don't understand how come the palm, but okay, let's be a palm. Got any Kubanskaya left in your pocket? Yes, I do. There you are. Go out to the vestibule and have a drink. Have a drink so you don't get sick. I got up, hemmed in by a host of idiotic smirks. Alarm welled up from the very dregs of my soul, and it was impossible to know what this alarm was all about, where it came from, and why was it so indistinct. Are we getting to Usad? People were crowding around the door expectantly, and I turned to them with my question. Are we getting to Usad? You ask stupid, boozy questions when you ought to stay home, some old-timer answered. You'd better stay home and do tomorrow's lessons. Probably you haven't done tomorrow's stuff yet. Your mama will get mad. And then he added, hardly out of diapers, and he's already learned to think. What's with him? Has he gotten off his rocker, this granddad? What mama? What lessons? What pants? No, it's probably not granddad, but me who's gone off his rocker, because this old-timer with a white face stood next to me, looked me in the eye from top to bottom and said, right. And anyway, where do you have to go to? It's too late for you to get betrothed and too early for the cemetery. Where do you have to go, sweet vagabond? Sweet vagabond. I shuddered and went to the other side of the vestibule. Something is amiss in the world, some kind of rot in the whole kingdom, and everybody's got his brains on crooked. Just in case, I felt myself fall over. What sort of sweet vagabond was I? Where did he get that? What's he been doing, reading Platonov? Sure, you can make a little joke, but nothing quite so nonsensical. I am in my right mind and they are not, or the other way around. They're all in their right minds and I alone am not. The feeling of alarm at the bottom of my soul has continued rising. And, as we are approaching another stop and the doors started to open, I couldn't resist and asked again one of the passengers getting off, "This is Usad, right?" And quite unexpectedly, he snapped to attention in front of me and bellowed, "No, sir." And then he shook my hand, leaned over, and said in my ear, "I will never forget your kindness, Comrade First Lieutenant." And he got off the train, wiping away a tear with his sleeve. Usad, kilometer 105. I remained where I was in complete loneliness and complete bewilderment. No, not quite bewilderment, but the same alarm turning into bitterness. Then, too, the hell with it. Let it be, sweet vagabond and first lieutenant. But why is it dark outside? Tell me, please. Why is it dark outside if the train left in the morning and has gone exactly 100 kilometers? Why? I lean my head on the glass. What blackness and beyond the blackness? Is that rain or snow? Or is it just that I'm looking through tears into the dark? Oh, God. "Oh, that's you," someone said from behind my back. It was such a pleasant and malicious voice that I didn't even need to turn around. I understood at once who was standing there behind me. He'll try to tempt me now, the stone-face. He's been waiting for the right time to tempt me. "Is that you, Yerofeev?" Satan asks. Of course it's me. Who else? "Tough on you, Yerofeev, is it?" Of course it's tough. Only that doesn't concern you. Get moving, you've got the wrong person. I continued to speak the same way with my forehead buried in the window without turning around. "Well, if it is tough," Satan went on, "subdue your transport. Subdue your spiritual transport and it'll be easier. I won't subdue it for anything." What a fool. Takes one to know one. "Well, okay, then don't say a word. You know what? Better jump out of this moving train. You just might not even get hurt." I thought about it and then I answered, "No, I won't jump. I'm afraid. I'd have to get hurt." And Satan left in disgrace. But what was left for me? I took half a dozen swallows from the bottle and again leaned my head on the window. The blackness went on swimming past the window and stirring up alarm within, and it awakened a black thought. I squeezed my head in order to focus this through. Yet it wouldn't focus at all, but flowed away inside like beer on a tabletop. I don't like this dark beyond the window. I don't like it at all. But the 6 slugs of Kubanskaya were already approaching my heart, quietly. One by one, they were approaching my heart, and my heart entered into a single combat with reason. So, what don't you like about the dark? Dark is dark, and you can't do anything about it. Dark is followed by light, and light is followed by dark. That is my opinion. And if you don't like it, the dark won't cease to be dark just because of that. So there remains only one way to get out, accept the dark. It is not for us fools to get the better of nature's laws. Having stopped up our left nostril, we can blow our nose only with the right one. Isn't that so? Well then, there's no demanding light beyond the window if beyond the window it is dark. Yeah, that is true. But, I did leave in the morning at 8:16 from the Kursk station. So what if it was morning? Now, thank God it's autumn, the days are short. You aren't even able to come to and bang. It's dark again. And it's oh so long to Petushki. From Moscow to Petushki, it's oh so long. What sort of oh? Why are you all the time owing? From Moscow to Petushki, it is exactly 2 hours and 15 minutes. Last Friday, for example. What's last Friday got to do with it? Who cares about last Friday? Last Friday, the train hardly made any stops, and in general, trains traveled faster then, but now the devil knows they'll stop and wait. For what? It's enough to make you sick sometimes. Why is it always stopping? Like that at every marker, except Yesina. I glanced out the window and frowned again. Yes, it's strange. We left at 8 in the morning and we're still going. Here my heart really exploded. And the others? What about the others? Are they worse than you? The others, they're also riding and not asking why it's so long and why it's so dark. They ride along quietly looking out the window. Why do you have to ride quicker than they? It's funny to listen to you, Vanya. Funny and disgusting. If you had a drink, Vanya, then don't be so immodest. Don't think that you're more intelligent and better than others. Now this tired me out completely. I went back into the car and sat down on a bench, trying not to look out the window. Everyone in the car, 5 or 6 people, were dozing with their heads lowered like babies. I, too, was almost dozing off. And suddenly jumped from my place. Gracious Lord, but she's supposed to be waiting for me at 11 in the morning. At 11, she's supposed to be waiting for me, and outside it's still dark. So I'll have to wait for her until morning. I don't really know where she lives. I've been there 12 times, always by way of some backyards and completely smashed. How annoying that on the 13th time I'm going to see her, I'm completely sober. Because of that, I'll have to wait until it finally gets light, until it finally dawns on my 13th Friday. But wait, as I left Moscow, it was already the dawn of my 13th Friday, which means that today is Friday. Why is it so dark outside? Again, you're at it with your darkness. What do you want with this darkness? But really, last Friday, again your last Friday, I see, Vanya, that you are completely in the past. I see that you don't wish to speak of the future at all. No, listen. Last Friday, exactly at 11 in the morning, she was there on the platform with her braid from head to ass, and it was quite light out. I remember perfectly, and I remembered her braid perfectly. What's her braid got to do with it? I repeat. The days are diminishing because it is autumn. Last Friday at 11 in the morning, I don't argue. It was light. But this Friday at 11 in the morning, it may be so dark that you could even poke your eye out. Do you know how the days are diminishing now? Do you know? I see that you don't know everything. You only brag about knowing everything. You were also talking to me about the braid. Well, a braid grows, maybe since last Friday it's below her ass. But autumn days, on the other hand, they're little snips. All the same, what a dope you are, Vanya. I hit myself not very hard across the cheek, drank 3 slugs, and shed a tear. From the bottom of my soul, in place of alarm, love arose. I went all limp. You promised her purple lilies, and you're taking her 300 grams of cornflower candy. And look, 20 minutes from now you'll be in Petushki, and on the platform bathed in sunlight, you'll get confused and hand her the cornflower, and everyone around will be saying, for the 13th time running, we've seen nothing but cornflower, and we've never once seen any lilies or purple, and she'll burst out laughing and say, here I almost dozed off. I dropped my head onto my shoulder, and I didn't want to raise it again until Petushki. Once more, I gave into the flow. Kilometer 105, Pokrov. But they interfered with my giving into the flow. No sooner did I drop off than someone hit me in the back with his tail. I quivered and turned around. There before me was someone with no feet or tail or head. Who are you? I asked in astonishment. Guess who? And he burst out laughing, with the laugh of a man-eater. Oh yeah? You think I'm going to guess? I turned away, offended, in order to drop off again. But here someone slammed me with a crushing blow of his head into my back. I turned around again. There before me was this very same someone without feet or tail or head. Why are you hitting me? I asked him. You guess why, he answered with the same carnivorous laugh. This time I decided to go ahead and guess, because if I turned away from this one, for all I knew, he'd crack me in the back with his feet. I lowered my eyes and fell to thinking. He waited while I thought it out and quietly raised a huge fist right up to my nostrils, as if to wipe my slow naughty nose. All the same, he was the first to speak. You're going to Petushki, to the city where neither winter nor summer, the jasmine never, and so on. Where neither winter nor summer, the jasmine never, and so on. Where your bucket of slop wallows around in the jasmine and linen, and the birds flutter above her, and do kiss her wherever they've a mind to? Yes, wherever they've a mind to. He burst out laughing again and hit me in the pit of my stomach. You just listen. Before you see a sphinx, and he will not let you into that city. Why won't he let me into it? There in Petushki, what's wrong? The pestilence? Did someone get betrothed to his own daughter there? And you? It's worse than a daughter or the pestilence. It's for me to know what's wrong. But I told you I won't let you in, so I won't let you in. Or I'll let you in on one condition, that you guess the answers to 5 of my riddles. What does he need with his riddles, the viper? I thought to myself, and said aloud, well, so don't wear me. Let's have your riddles. Take your huge fist away. Don't beat me in the pit of my stomach. And let's have your riddles. What does he need with his riddles, the fucking huckster? I thought a second time. But he had already begun his first. The well-known shock worker, Alexei Stakhanov, went to the toilet for number 1 2 times a day and once for number 2. But when he was drunk, he went 4 times for number 1 and not once for number 2. Calculate how many times per year shock worker Alexei Stakhanov went for number 1 and how many for number 2 if we consider that he was drunk 312 days per year. I thought to myself, who is he hinting about, the brute? Doesn't ever go to the toilet. Who is he hinting about, the slime? I got offended instead. This is a bad riddle, Sphinx. That's a riddle with piggish implications. I won't try to answer a riddle like that. Ah, you won't? Well. So you're going to start in on me again. Listen to the second. When the ships of the American 7th Fleet docked at the Petushki station, there were no Communist Party girls present, but if Komsomol girls are considered party members, then every third one of them was a blonde. When the ships of the American 7th Fleet set sail, the following was discovered. Every third Komsomol girl turned out to have been raped. Every fourth rape victim turned out to be a Komsomol girl. Every fifth of the Komsomol girls who had been raped turned out to be a blonde. Every ninth blonde raped victim turned out to be a Komsomol member. If there are 428 girls in all Petushki, determine how many non-party brunettes among them remained untouched. Who is he hinting about now? The dog. Why are the brunettes all intact, and with the blondes it's nothing but rape? What does he mean to say by this? The parasite. I won't try to solve this riddle either, Sphinx. You forgive me, but I won't. It's a very uncouth riddle. Better give me the third. Here's the third. As is well known, in Petushki there aren't any points A. Moreover, there are no points B, C, D, or E. There are only points F. So then, Polar explorer Papanin, desiring to save polar explorer Vodopinov, departed from point F1 for point F2. At the same moment, Vodopinov, deciding to save Papine, departed from point F2 for point F1. It is not known why both of them turned up at point F3, located 12 of Vodopinov's spitting distances from point F1 and 16 of Papanin's spitting distances from point F2. If it is allowed that Papanin could spit 3 meters and 72 centimeters, and that Vodopinov couldn't spit at all, did Papanin indeed set out to set Vodopinov? My God, what's he up to? Has he lost his marbles, this mangy Sphinx? Where's he headed? Why is it that in Petushki there are no points A, B, C, D, or E, but only F's? What is he hinting at, the bitch? Cried the Sphinx, rubbing his hands together. You won't try to solve this one either? Not this one either? Got you worried, egghead? Then here's the fourth for you. Lord Chamberlain, Premier of the British Empire, while departing the restaurant of the Petushki Railroad Station, slipped on somebody's vomit and, in falling, turned over the next table. On the table, before the fall, there were 2 pastries at 35 kopecks, 2 portions of beef stroganoff at 73 kopecks each, 2 portions of udder at 39 kopecks, and 2 carafes, each containing 800 grams of sherry. None of the crockery was broken, all the food was ruined. But here's what happened with the sherry. 1 carafe did not break, but everything spilled out of it to the last drop. The other carafe broke into smithereens, but not a drop spilled out of it. If it is allowed that the cost of an empty carafe is 6 times more than a portion of udder, while every child knows the cost of sherry, tell me what bill was presented to Lord Chamberlain, Premier of the British Empire, in the Kursk Station restaurant. What do you mean, the Kursk Station? I mean the Kursk Station. But didn't he slip where? He slipped in Petushki. Lord Chamberlain, he slipped in the Petushki restaurant. But he paid the bill at the Kursk Station. How much was the bill? Good God, where do sphinxes like this come from? Without feet, without a head, without a tail, and what's more, dreaming up such rubbish, and with the snout of a brigand. What's he hinting at, the pig? That's no riddle, Sphinx. That's mockery. No, it isn't mockery, Venya. This is a riddle. If you don't like this one, then give me the last one. Go on. Let's have the last one. Only listen carefully. Take 2 of our folk heroes, Minion, and coming towards him, Pozharsky. You're acting a bit strange today, Minion, said Pozharsky, like you drank a lot today. Yeah, you too, Pozharsky. You're asleep on your feet. Tell me, sincerely, Minion, how much have you drunk today? I'll tell you right off. First, 150 grams of Rossiyskaya, then 580 of Kubanskaya, 150 of Stolichная, 125 of pepper vodka, and 700 grams of beer and vodka mix. And you? I drank exactly the same, Minion. So where are you going now, Pozharsky? Where else? To Petushki, of course. And you, Minion? We too. I am also going to Petushki. You know, Prince, you're not heading the right way at all. No, it is you who's headed in the wrong direction, Minion. In other words, they convinced each other that it was necessary to turn back. Pozharsky set off in the direction Minion had been going, and Minion in the Pozharsky direction, and they both ended up at the Kursk Square. So, now you tell me, if they both had kept their same course and gone with their previous directions, where would they have ended up? Where would Pozharsky have gotten to? Tell me. To Petushki? I offered hopefully. Not so, as it were. Ha ha. Pozharsky would have ended up at Kursk station. That's where. And the Sphinx burst out laughing and got up on both feet. And Minion. Where would Minion have ended up? If he had gone in his own direction and not listened to Pozharsky's advice, where would Minion have gotten to? Perhaps to Petushki? I wasn't very hopeful anymore and all, but started crying. To Petushki, right? You don't want to try the Kursk station? Ha ha. Minion too will get to the Kursk station. So which of them will end up in Petushki? Ha ha. Nobody in general. Ha ha. Will end up in Petushki. What sort of laugh was it that the scoundrel had? Not once in my life had I heard such a blood-curdling laughter. If only he had just laughed, but then, still laughing, he grabbed me by the nose with two of his members and pulled me off somewhere. Where are you dragging me to, Sphinx? Where are you dragging me to? You'll soon see where. Ha ha, you'll see. He dragged me out to the vestibule and turned me around, with my face to the window and dissolved into thin air. What did he have to do that for? I looked out the window. Now the old blackness beyond the window was no longer there. On the sweaty glass someone's finger had marked, and through these little gaps I caught sights of lights, lots of city lights, and the station swimming past. Bakarov, a town in the Petushki region, 3 stops, and then Petushki. You're on the right path, Venedikt Yerofeev. And then my alarm, which has risen from the bottom of my soul, started back towards the bottom of my soul and fell quiet there. But then something else started up again from the bottom of my soul. One thought, one monstrous thought rushed upon me so that I felt weak in the knees. Here, I am leaving the Bakarov station, and I saw the sign Bakarov and the bright lights. All this bodes well, both Bakarov and the bright lights. But why did they appear on the right side of the train? I admit that my reason is in a bit of an eclipse, but really, I'm no kid. I do not know that if the Bakarov station appears on the right, it means I'm going away from Petushki towards Moscow, and not away from Moscow towards Petushki. Oh, that mangy Sphinx. I was struck dumb and started to rush about the car. As luck would have it, there wasn't a soul in it. Hold it, Venichka, don't rush it. Stupid heart, don't beat. Maybe you've gotten a little confused. Maybe Bakarov was on the left and not the right side at all. Go out and take a better look at what was at the side of the train, the glass marked on. I leaped to the end of the car and looked on the right. On the sweaty glass, clearly and prettily written was. I looked on the left, there too was written. I grabbed my head and returned to the car again. I was struck dumb and started to rush about. Hold it. Do you remember, Venichka, the whole way from Moscow you sat on the left side of the train, and all the black mustaches and the Mitriches and the Decembers sat on the right, which means that if you're going in the right direction, your suitcase should be lying on the left side of the train. See, it's so simple. I ran the length of the car looking for my suitcase. My suitcase was nowhere to be found, not on the right, not on the left. Where is my suitcase? Well, okay, Vanya, calm down. So what? The suitcase is nonsense. You'll find the suitcase later. First, make up your mind. Where are you going? Then, look for your suitcase later. First, get it clear in your mind. Then, later, the suitcase. Make up your mind, or the million in cash, which? Of course, first the mind, then the million. You've got class, Vanya. Drink the rest of the Kubanskaya to the fact that you've got class. And so I threw back my head and drank up my last drop. And right away the dark into which I had been plunged cleared again, and the dawn broke in the very depths of my soul, and my reason and sheet lightning glimmered once for every shallow. Man should not be lonely, that's my opinion. Man should give himself to people, even if they don't want to take. But if he is lonely anyway, he should go through the cars. He should find people and tell them, look, I'm lonely. I'll give of myself to the last drop because I just drank up the last drop. Ha ha. And you give of yourselves to me, and having given, tell me, where am I going, from Moscow to Petushki or from Petushki to Moscow? And according to you, man should act just like that? I asked myself, inclining my head to the left. Yes, just like that, I answered myself, inclining my head to the right. It's not the place for examining, on sweaty glass and agonizing riddles. And I set off through the train. No one was in the first car. Rain splashed in through the open windows. In the second, there wasn't anybody either. The rain wasn't even splashing in. In the third, there was someone. Kilometer 113, Omutishe. A woman all in black from head to foot was standing by a window and distractedly looking at the gloom outside. She pressed a lace handkerchief to her lips. Like two peas in a pod, a copy of Inconsolable Grief, a copy of you, Yerofeev, I thought, and at once burst out laughing to myself. Quickly, on tiptoe so as to not scare off the enchantment, I crept up to her from behind. The woman was crying. See, man goes off by himself to have a cry, but primevally he is not lonely. When man cries, he simply does not want anyone to be party to his tears, and he's justified, for is there anything on earth higher than that which is inconsolable? Princess, I called quietly. So what do you want? The princess responded, gazing out to the window. Nothing. Then you'd better sit down and shut up. You'll look positively intelligent. Is it for me, in my position, to be silent? Me, who went through all the cars for the solution to the riddle. Pity that I forgot what the riddle was about. But I remember it. It was something very important. Okay, later, I'll think of it. A woman is crying, and that is much more important. Oh, shameful beings, you have transformed my earth into the shittiest hell, and you force us to hide tears from people and put laughter up for show. Oh, miserable scum, you have left people with nothing except sorrow and fear, and after that their laughter is public but their tears are banned. Oh, to say it now, so as to burn them, the beasts, with my fiery word. Princess, princess! So what do you want again? Hey, listen, princess, where's your valet, Peter? I haven't seen him since August. What are you spouting? Honestly, I haven't seen him since. Where is he, your valet? Same place as yours, the princess snapped, and suddenly she tore away from her place and strode towards the doors, sweeping the floor of the car with her dress. Right at the doors, she stopped, turned her husky, cracked-tear face towards me and cried, I hate you, Tsar Andrei Mikhailovich. I hate you, and disappeared. So that's it. I drawled triumphantly as the Decemberist had clearly. She's really told me off. And left just like that, not answering about important things. Mother of heaven, what was that important thing? In the name of your gifts, let me recall. Valet. I rang the bell. An hour later I rang again. Valet. A servant came in dressed completely in yellow, my valet, by the name of Peter. When I was drunk once, I had somehow convinced him to wear all yellow till his dying day, the fool, and he dressed up in it since then. You know what, Peter? Was I asleep just now or not? What do you think? Was I asleep? In the other car, yes. But in this one, no? No, not in this one. That amazes me, Peter. Light the candelabra, otherwise, I'll become alarmed again. So, Peter, if I'm to believe you, I was asleep in the other car, but I awoke in this one, right? I don't know. I was asleep myself in this car. Good. But why didn't you get up and wake me? Why? As why should I get up and wake you? There was no reason for waking you in this car when you woke up in here by yourself. Don't get me mixed up, Peter. Don't mix me up. Let's remember, you see, Peter, I was able to resolve only one single thought, and how great this thought is. What thought is that? This. Do I have anything left to drink? Omotishe Leonova. No. Don't think that is really the thought. That is simply the means by which to resolve it. You understand? When the booze leaves the heart, fear and shakiness of consciousness appear. If I drink something now, I wouldn't be so broken up and incoherent. It isn't very noticeable, is it, that I'm broken up? Nothing at all is noticeable. Only your fat face is swollen. Oh, that's nothing. The face is nothing. And there is also nothing to drink. Peter offered, and he got up and lit the candelabra. I shook myself. Is it a good thing you lit them? Good otherwise. No what? It's a bit alarming. We keep going on the whole night, and there's no one with us except us. But where's your princess, Peter? She got off long ago. Where did she get off? At Kharpunova. She was riding from Petushki to Kharpunova. She got on at Orekhovo-Zuyeva and got off at Kharpunova. What Kharpunova is that? What do you keep spouting, Peter? Don't you mix me up. Don't mix me up. So the most important thought, I've got Anton Chekhov on my mind for some reason. Yes, and Friedrich Schiller and Anton Chekhov. And why I haven't the vaguest, Right, now, it's getting clear. Friedrich Schiller, when he sat down to write a tragedy, he'd stick his feet into champagne. Actually, no, that wasn't Schiller, that was State Councillor Goethe. He'd walk around the house in slippers in a bathrobe. But I go around the house without a bathrobe. I go on the street in slippers. And what's Schiller got to do with it anyway? Yes, here's what. When it happened that he drank vodka, he'd put his feet into champagne, soak and drink, good. But Chekhov, before he died, he said, I want to drink, and died. Peter kept looking at me, standing above me, watching as I collected my thoughts. There was also Hegel. That I remember well. There was Hegel. He'd say, there are no distinctions except distinctions in degree between various degrees and the absence of distinction. That is, if you translate it into good language, who doesn't drink these days? Do we have anything to drink, Peter? No, nothing. It's all gone. And there isn't anyone on the whole train? No. So, I fell to thinking again. And strange was my thought. It was enveloped around something in such a way that it itself was enveloped in something, and that something was also strange. And my soul was heavy. What was I just doing then? Falling asleep or waking up? I don't know, and how could I know? There's a state, but there's no name for it. Nor sleep nor waking is it. I dozed like that for about 12 or 35 minutes. And when I came into there wasn't a soul in the car, and Peter had disappeared somewhere. The train continued to race through the rain and the blackness. It was strange to listen to, the slamming of the doors in all the cars. Strange because there wasn't a single soul in any of the cars. I lay there like a corpse in icy precipitation, and fear kept building under my heart. Valet! Peter appeared in the door with a bluish, evil face. Come over here, Peter, come over here. You're also all wet. Why? That wasn't you just now slamming the doors, right? I wasn't slamming anything. I was asleep. Who was slamming the doors then? Peter looked at me without blinking. Oh, that's nothing. If the alarm is growing under your heart, you've got to stifle it. And in order to stifle it, you've got to have a drink. But do we have anything to drink? No, nothing. It's all gone. And isn't there anyone at all in the whole world? No one. You're lying, Peter. You're always lying to me. If there isn't anyone else, then who's banging around with the doors and windows, huh? Do you know? Do you hear? You've got something to drink, no doubt, and you keep lying to me. Peter was looking at me always the same, unblinking and spiteful. I saw by his ugly face that I had gotten to the core of him, that I understood him, and that now he feared me. Yes, he had fiddled around with the candelabrum and put it out himself, and then went along through the car, putting out the lights. He's ashamed, I thought, but he has already jumped out the window. I cried, Come back, Peter, in a voice I couldn't recognize. Come back. Trickster, he answered from behind the window. And suddenly he flitted back into the car again and flew up to me and tore at my hair with the most desperate spite. What's with you, Peter? What's with you? Nothing. Stay on here, hag. Stay, old bitch. Go on to Moscow. Sell your seeds there. I can't stand it. And once more he flitted away, this time for good. The devil knows what's up. What's with the bunch of them? I squeezed my temples, shuddered and shook. The train shuddered, and it shook with me. Moscow-Petushki. The doors started to click, then to bang louder and louder, more and more clearly. And then into my car and through it flew the tractor driver Yevtushkin, his face blue with fear, and a dozen moments later, the very same way, a horde of Varenes raced after him, tambourines and cymbals clanging. My hair stood on end. Forgetting myself, I stamped my feet. Stop, girls, goddesses of vengeance, stop. No one in the world is guilty. But they all ran on, and when the last one drew even with me, I was boiling and grabbed her from behind. She was panting. Where are you going? Where are you all running to? What do you want? Unhand me. Let go. Where are we all going? And what business is it of yours, crazy man? And suddenly she turned to me, clasped my head, and kissed me on the forehead so unexpectedly that I became embarrassed, sat down, and started to nibble on a sunflower seed. And as I was nibbling away, she returned and slammed past my left cheek. She slammed past it, soared towards the ceiling, and rushed off after the others. I tore after her. The sun was ablaze in the west, and the horses sheeted. And where is it, that happiness which they write about in the newspapers? I ran and ran, through whirlwind and gloom, ripping doors off of their hinges. I realized that the Moscow-Petushki train was flying off of the embankment. The cars heaved upward, then fell back again, as if overcome by stupor. And then I started to rush about, crying, Ooh, stop! And was struck dumb. The course of Varenes was racing back from the head of the train straight at me in a panic-stricken herd. Yevtushkin, white with rage, was chasing after them. The whole mass knocked me down and buried me underneath their feet. They went on clanging their cymbals and clattering their tambourines, and stars fell on the porch of the Agro-Soviet, and the maid of Shulam roared with laughter. Petushki the platform, and then everything started to swirl around. If you say that it was a fog, I probably would agree with you. Yes, it was a fog. But if you say no, it wasn't a fog, it was fire and ice, probably you're right. Fire and ice. That is, at first, the blood grows cold, and the moment it freezes, it starts boiling, and having boiled up, it grows cold again. I've got a fever, I thought. This hot fog everywhere. It's from a fever because I'm shivering myself, and there's hot fog everywhere. And someone's very familiar appears from out of the fog. Achilles, not Achilles, but very similar. Oh, I see now. It's the Pontic King Mithridates, all smeared with snot with a penknife in his hand. Mithridates, is that you? I said, barely able to make sounds. That you, is it, Mithridates? It is I, the Pontic King answered. And why are you all smeared up? I'm always like this, come the full moon and the snot starts running. It doesn't at other times. Sometimes it does, but not like during the full moon. And what about it? Don't you wipe your nose at all? I asked, almost whispering. Don't you? Oh, what can I say? Sometimes I do, but in the full of the moon, can you actually wipe it? Not so much as you smear it around. Really, everybody's got his own style. Some will let it run, others will wipe it. Still others smear it around. But me, in the full moon, I interrupted him. You talk a good game, Mithridates, but what do you have a knife in your hand for? What do you think? He's asking. To cut you up with. That's what for. And how he changed suddenly. He had talked quietly all the while, but now he bared his teeth, turned black, and where did all the snot go? And on top of that, he roared with laughter again. Then he bared his teeth again, and then again roared with laughter. I was hit by the shivers once more. What are you up to, Mithridates? I whispered or cried. I don't know which. Get rid of the knife. What do you need with a knife? But he couldn't hear anything anymore. He threatened me. It was as if 1,000 devils possessed him. Savage. And then he stabbed me in the left side, and I started to moan quietly because I didn't even have the strength to try and raise my arm to protect myself from the knife. Stop it, Mithridates, stop it. But he stabbed me in the right side, then the left again, then the right. I only succeeded in screaming helplessly and rushing about the platform in pain. I woke up with cramps all over. There was nothing about except the wind, the dark, and the devilish cold. What's with me, and where am I? Why is it drizzling? Oh, God. And I fell asleep again. And again it started up the same, and the shivers and the heat and the fever, and from far off, over there, where the fog swirled, those two lanky figures from Mukhina's huge sculpture emerged, the worker with his hammer and the peasant woman with her sickle, and they came right up to me, both with smirks on their faces, and the worker hit me on the head with his hammer, and then the peasant woman gave it to me in the balls with her sickle. I cried out, and probably aloud, and woke up once more. This time I was in convulsions. Everything in me was shuddering, my face and clothes and soul and thoughts. Oh, this pain. Oh, this devilish cold. Oh, the impossibility of it. If every one of the Fridays ahead is like this one, some Thursday I'll hang myself. I was expecting some other kind of convulsions from you, Petushki. While I was getting to you, who cut up your birds and trampled your jasmine, Queen of Heaven, I am in Petushki. It's nothing, Yerofeev, it's nothing. Telefakumi, as the Savior said. That is, get up and go. I know, you're beat, in all your members and in the depths of your soul, and it's wet and empty here on the platform, and nobody met you, and no one will ever meet you. All the same, get up and go. Try it. But God, your suitcase with the goodies, 2 cups of nuts for the kid, cornflower candy, and the empty bottle. Where's your suitcase? Who stole it? After all, it had the goodies in it. But take a look. Do you have any money? Maybe just a little. Yes, a little, hardly anything. But what good is money now? Oh, the ephemeral, oh, vanity, oh, that most infamous and shameful of times in the life of my people, the time from the closing of the liquor stores until dawn. It's nothing, Yerofeev, nothing. Telefakumi, as your tsaritsa said when you were lying in your tomb. That is, arise, brush off your coat, clean up your pants, shake the dust off, and go on. Try 2 steps, anyway, the rest will be easier. You yourself told your little boy when he was sick, 1, 2, button your shoe. Aren't you ashamed to be lying in bed? The main thing is to get off from the tracks. Trains are always going by here, from Moscow to Petushki, from Petushki to Moscow. Get off the tracks. Then you'll find out why there's not a soul around and why she didn't meet you and everything. Go on, Venichka, go on. Petushki, Station Square. If you want to go to the left, Venichka, go to the left. If you want to go right, go right. It's all the same, so you might as well follow your nose. Someone told me once that it is very simple to die. To do it, you've got to breathe in 40 times altogether. Deep, as deep as you can, and breathe out the same way, from the depths of your heart, and then you'll let go of your soul. Maybe I should try it. Oh, hold it. Maybe I should find out what time it is, but who can I ask? If there is not a single person in the square, not a single one, and if some living soul did come along, could you even get your mouth open with the cold and the grief? Yes. Oh, the muteness of the cold and the grief. And if I die sometime, I'm going to die very soon. I know I'll die as I am, without accepting this world, perceiving it close up and far away, inside and out, perceiving but not accepting it. I'll die, and he will ask me, was it good there for you? Was it bad there for you? I will be silent with lowered eyes. I'll be silent with that muteness familiar to everyone who knows the outcome of days of hard boozing. For isn't the life of a man a momentary booziness of the soul? And an eclipse of the soul as well. We are all as if drunk, only everyone in his own way. One person has drunk more, the next less, and it works differently on each. The one laughs in the face of this world while the next one cries on its bosom. One has already thrown up and feels better, while the next is only starting to feel like throwing up. But me, where am I? I've partaken of much, but nothing works on me. I haven't really laughed properly, even once, and I've never thrown up, even once. I, who have partaken of so much in this world that I've lost count in the sequence of all of it, I am soberer than everyone else in this world. It's simply that nothing much works on me. Why are you silent? The Lord in all blue lightning asks me. So what shall I answer him? I'll just be silent, silent. Maybe I should open my mouth after all. Find some living soul and ask for the time. What do you need the time for, Venedikt? Better go on. Back to the wind and get going bit by bit. Once you had a heavenly paradise. You could have found out the time last Friday, but now your heavenly paradise is no more. What do you need with the time? Your tsarita did not come to you on the platform with her lashes lowered. A deity has turned away from you. So what do you need to find the time for? Not a woman but blank manage, as you once called her in jest. She didn't come to you on the platform. The delight of humankind, the lily of the valley, did not come to meet you. What's the point of finding out the time after that, Venedikt? What's left to you? In the morning to moan, in the evening to cry, at night to grind your teeth? And who in the world cares about your heart? Who? Just go into any home in Petushki, knock on any door and ask, what do you care about my heart? Oh my God. I went around the corner and knocked on the first door I came to. Petushki, Sadovy Circle. I knocked and stood shivering in the cold, waiting for them to open the door. Strange, the tall buildings they've put up in Petushki. However, it's always like that with a long, hard drunk. People seem hideously angry, the streets excessively wide, the house is terribly big. Everything gets bigger with a hangover, exactly as much as everything seemed more insignificant than usual when you were drunk. Do you remember the premise of that guy with the black mustache? I knocked again, a little harder than before. Is it really so difficult to open the door to someone and let him in to warm up for 3 minutes? I don't understand. They're serious and don't understand it, but I'm a lightweight and I'll never understand it. Mene tekel parsin. That is, you are weighed upon the scales and found wanting. That is tekel. So let it be, let it... But if there are scales or not, all the same. On those scales, sighs and tears outweigh calculation and desire. I know that better than you know anything. I've lived through a lot. I've drunk and thought through a lot, and I know what I'm saying. And your guiding stars are rolling towards the horizon, and if not, they're barely glimmering. I don't know you people. I know you badly. I rarely paid attention to you, but I've got something for you. I'm concerned with what your souls are taken with now, in order to know for sure whether the Star of Bethlehem will blaze forth once again, or once again starts to glimmer, because all the others are rolling towards the horizon, or if they aren't, they're barely glimmering, and even if they are, they aren't worth 2 gobs of spit. If there are scales there or not, we lightweights will outweigh and overcome. I believe in that more firmly than you believe in anything. I believe, I know, and I bear witness to it to the whole world. But it is strange how the streets have gotten so wide in Petushki. I moved away from the door and warily gazed from one house to the other, from one hallway to the other. And while a single oppressive thought, terrible to pronounce together with an oppressive conjecture, also terrible to pronounce, clawed at me, I went on, and I stared intently at every house with difficulty. There were tears in my eyes, from the cold and from something else. Don't cry, Yerofeev, don't cry. Why should you? And why are you shaking so? From the cold and from something else, too? You needn't. If I had had 20 swallows of Kubanskaya, they would have gone to the heart, and the heart would have had been able to convince reason that I wasn't Petushki. But I didn't have any Kubanskaya. I turned onto a back alley once again, started to shake and cry. And here something happened more terrifying than anything seen in a dream. In the very same back alley, 4 men came towards me. I recognized them at once. I won't tell you who they were. I started shaking even more than before, convulsively. They came up and surrounded me. How can I explain to you what sort of ugly faces they had? No, not at all like brigands. Rather, there was a touch of something classical about them. But the eyes of all 4. Have you ever sat in the toilet in the Petushki station? And do you remember how far below the ground openings that reddish-brown piss water splashes and glitters? That's the kind of eyes they all had. And the 4th one looked like... I'll tell you later whom the 4th one looked like. Well, now you've had it, one of them said. What do you mean, I've had it? My voice was trembling terribly from the hangover and from the chill. They assumed that it was from fear. Like this, you've had it, and you're not going anywhere, ever again. Why? Because. Listen, my voice broke. Now my every nerve was trembling, not only in my voice. At night no one can be sure of himself. That is, I meant to say on a cold night. The apostle betrayed Christ himself before the 3rd cock crew. Rather, the apostle betrayed Christ thrice before the cock crew. I know why he betrayed him, because he was shivering from the cold. He was still warming himself by the fire, together with them. I don't have a fire, no, and I've been boozing for a week. And if they were to torture me now, I would betray him to the 70th time and more. Listen, I said to them, the best I could. You let me go. What am I to you? I just didn't get to my girl. I was on my way, but didn't get there. I just overslept. They stole my suitcase while I was asleep. It had a little stuff in it, but it's a pity all the same. The cornflower. What's a cornflower got to do with it? One of them asked spitefully. Oh, candy. Cornflower, candy, and 200 grams of nuts. Taking them to the kid. I promised him because he really knows his alphabet letter. But that's nonsense. Once it gets light, I'll start out again. Without money, without presents. But they'll understand. They won't say a thing. On the contrary. All 4 men stared at me intently, and all 4 probably thought, the bum. What a coward. How transparent. Oh, let them think. Let them think it. If only they'd let me go. Where, in what newspaper have I seen their repulsive faces? I want to go to Petushki again. You're not going to any Petushki. Well, suppose I don't. Then I want to go to the Kursk station. There won't be any station for you. And why not? Just because. One of them swung his arm and hit me in the cheek. Another with his fist in my face. The others 2 moved in too. All the same, I remained standing and moved off. Quietly, but all 4 kept quietly after me. Run, Venedikt. Any place at all, doesn't matter where. Run to the Kursk station, to the left or right or back. It doesn't matter where you end up. Run, Venedikt, run. I grabbed myself by the head and started running, with them behind me. Petushki, the Kremlin. Maybe this is Petushki after all. Why aren't there any people on the streets? Have they all died off? If the 4 of them catch up, they'll kill me. And who'll be there to hear my screaming? There's not a single light in any window, but it's fantastic. The street lights are shining without batting an eye. It's very possible that this is Petushki. That building straight ahead over there, that's the Regional Social Welfare Agency. There beyond, it's dark. The Petushki Social Welfare Agency, and, beyond, dark forever and ever. And the resting place of departed souls. Oh, no. I leapt out into a square covered with wet paving stones, took a breath and looked around. No, this isn't Petushki. If he has departed the earth forever, but sees every one of us, I know that he never once looked this way. And if he never left the earth, if he has passed through it barefoot and dressed as a slave, he passed this place by and went off somewhere. No, this isn't Petushki. He did not pass Petushki by. He was tired and took rest in Petushki, and I have noticed in many souls there the ashes and smoke of his campfire. No, this isn't Petushki. The Kremlin shone before me in all its splendor. Even though I heard the clattering pursuit behind me, I had time to think, I, who have passed through all Moscow, up and down, drunk and sober, I've never seen the Kremlin, and when I went hunting for it, I always ended up at the Kursk station. And now, finally, I see it, when the Kursk station is more necessary to me than anything on earth. Inscrutable are your ways. They were getting closer and closer, and I couldn't seem to catch my breath in order to run on. I could only drag myself over to the Kremlin wall and collapse. They came across the square, 2 from each side. Who are they, and what have I done to them? It didn't occur to me to ask who cares. Either they'll see me or they won't. Who cares anyway? There's no need to tremble. What I need is rest. That's my desire. Deliver me, Lord. But they spotted me, came up and surrounded me, puffing heavily. It's a good thing I was able to get up on my feet. They would have killed me. You wanted to run away from us? One of them hissed and grabbed me by the hair, slamming my head into the Kremlin wall with all his strength. It seemed to me that I split in two from the pain. Blood streamed down my face and under my collar. I almost fell, but managed to remain standing. They started to beat me up. Give it to him in the guts with your boot, in the guts. Let him squirm. My God, I broke away and ran off down the square. Run, Vanichka. If you can run, run off. They can't run at all. I stopped for 2 moments by the monument and wiped the blood from my eyes in order to see better. I first looked at Minin, then at Pozharsky, then Minin again. Which direction should I run? Where's the Kursk station, and where should I run? There was no time to think. I ran off in the direction in which Prince Dmitry Pozharsky was looking. Moscow/Petushki, an unidentified front hallway. Right up to the very last moment, I was still counting on saving myself. Even when I ran into some strange front hallway, climbed up to the top landing and collapsed. Again, I still kept on hoping. Oh, it's nothing. Your heart will quiet down in an hour. You'll wash off the blood. Lie down, Vanichka. Lie down till morning, and then you'll go to the Kursk station. And you don't need to shake like that. I already told you. You don't have to. My heart was beating, so it was difficult to hear, and all the same I heard. The door below opened slowly for 5 moments and didn't close again. Trembling all over, I said to myself, Telefakumi. That is, get up and prepare for the end. This isn't Telefakumi, it's Lama Savafani, as the Savior said. That is, why hast thou forsaken me? The Lord was silent. Angels of heaven, they're coming up. What should I do? What should I do now so as to not die? Angels! And the angels burst out laughing. Do you know how angels laugh? They are shameless creatures. Should I tell you how they burst out laughing just now? A long time ago in Lobna, at the station, a man was cut up by a train, cut up in an unbelievable way. His whole lower half was crushed to smithereens and scattered over the roadbed, but his upper half, from the belt up, remained as if alive, and he stood by the tracks, the way busts of various pigs stand on pedestals. The train pulled away, but that half of him remained standing there, and on his face there was a sort of perplexity, and his mouth half open. A lot of people couldn't stand to look at it and turned away, pale, with a deathly wariness in their hearts. But some children ran up to him, 3 or 4 children. They had picked up a lighted cigarette butt from somewhere and stuck it in the dead man's half-open mouth. And the cigarette butt continued to smoke, and the children ran around roaring with laughter. That's how the heavenly angels laughed at me then. They laughed and God was silent, and I already caught sight of the 4 of them. They were climbing up from the floor just below. But when I saw them, I was really more surprised than afraid. All 4 of them were climbing the stairs barefoot, with their shoes in their hands. Why was this necessary? So as not to take notice in the hall, or in order to sneak up on me unnoticed. I don't know, but it was the last thing that I remember. That is, the feeling of surprise. They didn't even stop to rest, but rushed from the top of the stair to strangle me, right away. 5 or 6 hands. I tried to untangle their hands and defend my throat as best as I could. And then, the worst thing of all happened. The one with the fiercest and most classical profile pulled a huge awl with a wooden handle out of his pocket. Maybe not even an awl, but a screwdriver or something else. I don't know. But he ordered all the others to hold my hands, and no matter how I tried to defend myself, they pinned me down to the floor, half crazy. What for? What for? What for? What for? I muttered. They struck the awl into my throat. I didn't know that there was pain like that in the world, and I writhed from the torture of it. In a clotted red letter U spread across my eyes and started to quiver. And since then, I have not regained consciousness, and I never will. While working as a cable fitter in Sheremetyevo, autumn 1969.